Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. This should be another live stream that is fairly short. It will last as long as the questions do. I'm going to break this video up into three main categories. Well, technically four. In the beginning of the video, I'm going to talk about my streams of income in three different phases. The streams of income I had before I reached the, status of being a millionaire. Before. Then the streams of income I have now that my net worth is it went over 2 million. So that's technically multiple millions, which feels really weird to say. And then the third one will be income streams I will develop going forward. And I have done some research because I was thinking of making a video, like an edited video for this on the average streams of income for millionaires, but there are thousands of those. And I'm not looking to compete with thousands of videos. I like to do kind of unique ones. So this is not the 7 streams of income, which most millionaires have, which I have a video of. So I'll just read those off really quick because most of these aren't the ones I have. Earned income, have that. Business income, failed at 2. If you guys want to hear about those, let me know in the questions that come up and we'll answer those tonight. Interest income, if you count $10 or $20 a year, maybe. Dividend income, no. Rental income, yes. So now I have 2. Advertising income, no. Licensing income, no. Those are the 7 most common streams of income of millionaires. Maybe I'm not a common millionaire. If this is your first time to my channel, to explain why it seems weird to me to say things like streams of income as a millionaire is because 10 years ago, I was a single parent with 3 kids, found out about $89,000 in bad debt in my name that I didn't know existed until the divorce, had been laid off from a police department, went to work for a trucking company, Old Harbor Freight Lines, was on track to make $115,000 that year, and they went on strike. So I started teaching at a truck driving school. A little over 10 years ago, I was making $17 an hour teaching people how to drive trucks. To flash forward, it took 8 years to reach a net worth of $1 million, so bad debt-free net worth of $1 million. And then it took 2 years to double that to a little over 2 million in net worth. So those are things I'm still kind of adjusting to, getting used to. Before reaching millionaire status, streams of income, like most people, in the 90s of percent have one stream of income. We literally are trained this since we're kids. You go to school. School has a building that you go into. A bell or a buzzer or a timer goes off and you sit in a chair for around 8 hours. You take a lunch break. You take literally play breaks when you're young, breaks to get from one class to another as you get older. At the end of 8 hours, you go home. You work Monday through Friday in school as a kid to prepare you for working Monday through Friday as an adult. You get your weekends off. You get your evenings off. It's like we're trained that that's the way life is supposed to be. So most of us have a W-2 income, that one source of income. One of the reasons I developed other sources of income and reached millionaire status is because I was tired of my sources of income being taken away due to things outside of my control. After Desert Storm, the Marine Corps downsized. In 2008, laid off from a police department because when there's a recession going on, the cities aren't making a lot of money, so they just think, there's no more crime, so we don't need cops anymore. So a bunch of us got laid off. The trucking company went on strike. I started a business, and my ex emptied the wages and tax account, so that business got closed down. So that's one of the ones that I failed at. So having side hustles or sources of income that didn't always rely on me selling my life 1 hour at a time started before I became a millionaire. I was working a W-2. So when we work at W-2, a lot of people think, and they say things like I just did, a job sucks. That's why they pay you to be there. So you're compensated for your time. The limiting factors are you only have so many hours in a day that you can work. So some of the benefits that people don't often always talk about with the W-2 that don't exist in other sources of income is, in most cases, once you work past 40 hours in a week, you start being compensated with overtime. Some union jobs will pay you overtime if you work over 8 hours in a day. I haven't had very many of those. In law enforcement, you can work overtime at a construction site and earn a couple $100s an hour to sit in your car and make sure that the construction site's safe. So overtime can be a stream of income associated with your W-2. But W-2 jobs also offer things like benefits. I mean, actual physical benefits, healthcare, unemployment insurance. If you run a business or you have income that doesn't come from you selling your life 1 hour at a time and you stop working there, no one's going to continue to pay you. I mean, in very rare cases, you might have some royalties that continue to come in. But while you're working a W-2 job, you have enough mental peace to know if I'm laid off, fired, terminated, company shuts down, I have unemployment insurance, which is pretty much enough to survive on. Then we all found out that during the pandemic, you might get extra unemployment, extended unemployment, and unemployment is an attractive thing. So a lot of people want to work at W-2 because they need healthcare. And then that unemployment insurance, retirement accounts, which I hate. But while people are working, if you have no other form of investing, a retirement account is a benefit, kind of like the match. I do have a video on my channel called, it was a live stream, Retirement Accounts Suck. And some people will say things like, well, I contribute at least for the match because it's free money. And I work at a company that has a simple plan, retirement, and I contribute for the match. But if you're choosing between two companies and you think, I'm going to choose company A because it offers a retirement match and company B doesn't, look at the wages. Most employers often compensate the same amount for employees. And if they offer a match for a retirement plan, it means they're paying less on the hourly. So it's not really free money if you have a choice of companies to work at. If you work at a company that offers a match, it's part of your compensation package. Take advantage of it. So those are the things that come up with a W-2. But there's a lot of W-2 jobs. I joined the Marine Corps in the dinosaur age, where my take-home pay was like $700 every 2 weeks. So when I go in 88 to 94. So I was in 88. You didn't make a lot of money. As an enlisted, you can make more money in the military if you go in as an officer, which usually takes college, officer candidate school, a lot more steps to become an officer than being an enlisted person. I also, when I got out of the Marines, I've had several different jobs. I worked in a auto shop doing oil changes. I worked at the windmills in California doing maintenance on windmills. And as you got more certificates and skilled in your labor, you could make more money. I got a commercial driver's license because you get paid a lot more to drive a truck than to load the stuff that goes on the truck. Some people can get an HVAC technician skill, or it can be something like developing actual skills like public speaking. But to get your W-2 to make the most amount of money, when we're kids, we're told college, 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 or you're a failure. But there are so many ways to increase what you make from your W-2 job that don't rely going to school. Sometimes it's a certificate. Sometimes it's a experience. I'm from the generation where longevity was rewarded. From my generation, our parents had pensions. Pensions changed into 401ks, so it's no longer a permanent amount for your life. It's an amount based on how much you contribute. So I was raised from people who had the mindset that the longer you were at a company, the more you were rewarded. I actually, my intention when I started working a W-2 job was 20 years Marine Corps, 20 years law enforcement, retire with 2 pensions covered. 40 years of work, more than 40 hours a week to retire on less than 40% of what I made. Not a good plan. But it's what we were told was the right thing to do. So most of us need a W-2 to at least get started. The concept on my channel is the average person can reach financial freedom in 10 years or less, even if you're not starting from the best position. That's my goal, is to share that information with you. But in those 10 years, a W-2 is going to probably, for most of us, be an actual requirement. Pretty much for the first 5 years, guaranteed. There are some creative ways to do financing and some ways around it, but it's such a one-off that it's not worth focusing on. So figuring out how to make the most money for yourself is doing things like not rack up a bunch of college loan debt for a degree that you're not actually going to use to make more money. If you want to get a college degree in a field because it just fascinates you, develop the skills it takes to get an income so that later in life you can take that college course or degree to get that information when it doesn't cost you a bunch of debt, when you can actually pay for it as you're going. So developing some skills, which can be sales. Most money made at a company goes to the sales department. So you have your W-2 job, and I talked about ways to increase it. That can be overtime. In my generation, it was longevity. The longer you stayed at a company, the more money you made. You got a cost of living raise, you could get promotions. There are literally videos and books on how to climb the corporate ladder. Before escaping the rat race became more catchy as a phrase, climbing the corporate ladder was a thing. Recently, and I say recently, last 10 to 20 years, it's been more lucrative to change companies. We're not rewarded by staying for the length for a pension because most places don't have them. And even things like school districts, municipalities, places that have pensions, those places are filing bankruptcy. So people are getting paid out a percentage of what they were expecting, what they worked for to earn over decades, they're getting a portion of. Right now, if you're working for a company, you're probably going to get a cost of living raise of somewhere between 3 and 9%. If you change companies, you're probably going to get a 15 to 25% cost difference to attract you to the new company. So that's been a big change with W-2 jobs, not so much staying with one job for years and years, but figuring out when is the right time to change companies to increase your income. So W-2 to me, though, is the most risky form of income. The Marines wouldn't let me re-enlist. The police department was laying off. The company went on strike. My company shut down, and I was paying myself as a W-2 employee of my own company. Those are jobs, those are things that can go away. You can also lose your ability to work. If you work in the legal field and you do something that gets you disbarred, all of the work, training, and education you put into becoming an attorney, it's not pointless. There are still jobs you can do, but being an attorney is probably not one of them. What about the stories we hear of somebody who goes to medical school for years and years, 2, 3, 4 years, and then finds out they don't like the sight of blood? Now they've limited the type of work they could do with the degree that they invested all their time and money into. Something can change with you that takes away that job. If you're a truck driver, first of all, you're held to federal mandates for drugs. So no matter what's legal in your state, you're held to a federal standard. Second, you can have accidents that they blame on you that get blamed at driver at fault accidents, which can make it really hard to get a job, even if the accident wasn't technically your fault. You can lose the ability to keep or maintain your medical card. And now all of your years of driving translates into being a dispatcher and making a third of what the driver was. So that to me is the most risky thing, is that first source of income, which I've had most of my life. I started working at 8, and I pretty much worked ever since. I've always had a W-2 job. Since 2018, I haven't had to. So I started around 2010. By 2018, work became optional. I still have a W-2 because I love what we do. I get to have fun at work. I run a truck driving school. I get to actually play in trucks like they're a big go-kart, and we have simulators. I get to goof off all day. The more I play, the better the driver becomes, and I help people find work. So I still have a W-2 income. Before being a millionaire, I also had I had a couple of side hustles, actually. One that most people will understand. I needed to make extra money, but I'm a single parent with 3 kids. So working a ton of overtime would have meant less time with my kids. Developing a side hustle while my kids were young might not have been an option. People run lawn care services on the weekend, which would have been giving up more time with my kids. People do couch flipping where you buy things off of, and it's not easier. It's more available now to do this with things like OfferUp, but we had eBay back in the day where you could buy things, fix them up, and resell them. So those were possible side hustles that I could do, but almost every one of those would have taken me away from my kids more. So I developed a side hustle at home before I reached a millionaire status. I played games like Ultima Online, EverQuest, World of Warcraft, all of the massive multiplayer online games. And in those games, there is an economy. Some of the games you can actually sell the currency for real dollars. Some of the games, it's the items in the game that are hard to acquire that you can spend the time and energy on to acquire and then sell those. So I actually always had 2 computer stations set up at my house. I played games with my kids. So my kids learned how to type at a young age because we didn't used to have voice chat in all of the games. People had to type out in World of Warcraft what you wanted to do. So my kids were playing with me, but learning how to type and being used as a type of child labor, but playing a game. Because some of the things we did in the game, I sold to the websites that were buying these things, whether I got it or the kids got it. Actually had kind of an arrangement with my kids where if they worked in the game to make the stuff I made the money from, they then got to play the game where they didn't have to worry about that. Our version of chores. Another side hustle that I had before being an investor and before having a net worth that was even positive, I did a form of house hacking. So as a millionaire, I'm still house hacking, which is reducing or eliminating your largest expense, which for most of us is housing. My first version of it, as far as an investor, was to move into a duplex and rent out the other side, reducing my housing cost from the apartment I was living in at $1,500 a month, reducing my cost to about $300 a month. So saving $1,200 a month. Not really a source of income, but choosing to do something that reduced an expense by $1,200 a month, to me, let me save $1,200 a month more than I was before. But before that, when I went to become a police officer for a city in Washington State, the academy is about an hour, a little over an hour away from my house, almost an hour away. 6 months. So single parent, 3 kids, they were still kind of young. How do you attend a 6-month academy where you train for 8 to 12 hours a day and you need to study for 4 to 6 hours a night? There were nights where going to the academy, I couldn't drive home. I did not have the stamina to even stay awake. So I would sleep in the parking lot at the academy, shower in the gym the next day, go through the academy. I rented out a room in my house because we had a 4-bedroom house. My daughter shared a room. My son had a room. I had a room. So it was 4 bedrooms. Rented out a room to a young couple for free. They didn't pay me any rent. So I wasn't house hacking to reduce or eliminate my housing costs. But them having free housing provided me with 24-hour-a-day live-in daycare. How much would that have cost me to actually acquire 24-hour-a-day live-in daycare? So a stream of income was renting out a room in my house, sharing our living space to reduce or eliminate daycare costs. So I have some notes to make sure that I don't miss this because I don't have the best memory. Trying to think of, so there are streams of income that a lot of people talk about, like stocks. I don't have any. I have a little bit of money locked away in a retirement account because I'm still contributing for the match. But in 2020, I emptied my retirement account because the CARES Act allowed you to do that without a penalty up to $100,000. And I put that money to work in a rental property. I don't have any dividend stocks. I don't invest in crypto. I do think that most people should have a few ounces of gold. I prefer 10th ounces. I have them in the safe at work. They are basically the size of a dime, almost, maybe a little bit bigger. But when things go really bad, and it can never happen here, everybody says, but all of a sudden, banks don't allow access. You need some cash. I wouldn't worry about paying mortgages because that's all handled electronically. So we're still going to have access to that. But money to spend or trade, I don't invest in gold as a store of money to have, $10, $20, $30,000, $100,000 worth of metals. But I do have enough to trade or barter just in case it ever is needed, which everyone will say will never happen unless you live right now currently in Ukraine or Russia or anywhere where things are happening that sanctions are happening to currency drops to no value, those kind of things. Trying to think. Those were the sources of income before reaching millionaire status. So the sources of income that got me to millionaire status. The biggest thing I was able to do was house hack. So the first house hack was to reduce or eliminate the cost of having daycare. But then I moved into a duplex. When I moved into a duplex, I reduced my housing cost from $1,200 a month to $300 a month. I had a bad debt to income ratio and I had low income. So qualifying for a duplex would have been difficult. I lived in a house. I actually retained the house through our divorce, had to refinance to pay her out her portion of the equity, which put me underwater on the house. So I couldn't even sell it. I owed more than it was worth. But I moved from the house into an apartment for 2 years. For 2 years, I rented out the house very poorly in the first year because I hadn't educated myself. I hadn't found things like the book One Rental at a Time or BiggerPockets or anything to learn how to run a rental business. But I finally started to make money with that property. And at the 2-year mark, I had rental income on 2 years of tax returns, which allowed the lenders to look at a duplex I was purchasing and include the rent from the other side in my debt to income ratio, which allowed me to purchase the duplex, even though I still had bad debt to income and a low income for qualification. Whenever you go to qualify for a house, a lot of times FHA, VA has an amount that you can borrow for single family, an amount for duplex, triplex, or fourplex, up to 4 units. It increases the amount that you can borrow. Especially for for most lenders, they'll recognize the rental income if you have it on 2 years tax returns. So for those 2 years, I continued to make money as a side hustle from online video games. I was renting out the house. So this is part of the contributing to the income snowball, which hasn't kicked in yet. I moved into the duplex, which almost eliminated my housing cost. And around that time, when I was working at the truck driving school, I developed a side hustle that most of us can do. Usually after you've been working for maybe 4 years or more in any field. I developed a side hustle as an expert witness. So I've worked in the military, I've been a Marine, and I've been a truck driver, and I worked in law enforcement. So those are 3 industries where I can provide testimony on what it's like to be a police officer, what the rules and regulations are like, what it's like to be a truck driver, what is reasonable for a truck driver to be aware of and knowledgeable on, or I suppose being a Marine would count. I've never testified on one of those cases, but there are national databases of attorney firms that are looking for people who are experts in IT, HR, truck driving, welding, HVAC work, working in elevated spaces. Almost any field that you've worked in that you have mastered, spent 4 or more years working in a field, you can provide testimony for cases in that field. So Expert Institute is one that I'm like on a list of people that gets called. So I have attorneys reach out to me. They provide very minor details for the case because you can be hired by opposition if you have a conflict with the people. So they don't give you too many of the details, but it says an example is police officer off duty, drinking, on his way home, sees a stop, takes these actions. Do you think you can comment with your experience, training, and education on if this was a reasonable and necessary step for this officer to take while they were off duty? You can respond yes or no. It can be how much should a driver be driving the speed limit in a semi at night in icy conditions when they're fatigued? Whatever the question is, if you can provide an answer that supports or is against their case, you answer. They hire you with a retainer. So how you get paid for this is you get $1,000. You can set your retainer at anything you want, 500, 1,000, 1,500. I picked 1,000, nice round number. They send you $1,000. You are now retained by that company. This is 1099 income. So remember, you're going to have to pay taxes on this later. You can have write-offs, but you don't get to use things like depreciation. So you're probably still going to have a tax obligation. Most cases, as an expert witness, don't go beyond your retainer. Several emails back and forth. You might get deposed once, which is where they take a deposition where they have, I've done it in person, but recently for the last 2 years, it's been Zoom meetings. So they ask you a set number of questions and you answer. It gets written into text format. So there's a court stenographer there that records everything. That's generally as far as they go. If it goes to trial where you're actually going to go to court, sit on the stand like in the movies and give your witness testimony, your expert witness testimony, then you can bill. And for me, I bill $150 an hour. I've only had to do that twice in like 5 years. It's very rare that it actually goes to trial. That is a side hustle that you can do. And pretty much any field that you've worked in for 4 or more years, you can provide expert witness testimony in that field. So getting on the list is what takes time. The first year I did it, I think I got 2 cases. Since then, I've done 6. I think my best year was 2019. I had like 11 or 12 of those because it was like, I think I had almost $20,000 in 2019 that I had on my tax return. So that contributed to me being able to save for the next investment. Rental income, W-2 income, increasing my skills. I was working my way up in my company. Since I had the idea of financial freedom, I presented an idea to the owners of the company which if I didn't have the idea of financial freedom and I thought I really needed this job, I would have kept my mouth shut, kept my head down and just done my job because my kids needed it to survive, right? But since I realized that a job is just a tool that gets you to financial freedom in 10 years or less, I presented my idea to grow the company to the owners. They quickly demoted me down to the president of the company and gave me 10% ownership because the idea actually worked out. So my pay started to increase. So think of things you can do to increase your income, which for me ended up being um, the job I was at. For some of us, like I mentioned earlier, it's going to be changing companies. You're going to get a bigger raise if you change companies. So I've tried 2 businesses that didn't work. So right around this time where I had the house rented out, I was doing expert testimony, I was saving, I was still working overtime. I had worked my way up in the company to make more money than $17 an hour. I was house hacking. 2 years later, I bought another duplex. A little less than 2 years later, I bought another duplex, and then I did a fourplex, and I'm house hacking now, and then I bought a triplex and another duplex. So over the next, well, total of about 11 years, I've acquired 16 rental units. Rents go up every year. They have so far in 11 years. I have not had a year where they've gone down. I've not even had a year where they stayed flat unless I chose not to do a rent increase. And the mortgages, for the most part, stayed pretty much the same. Taxes and insurance go up a little bit, not as much as rents do. If you're familiar with my content, you know that I have the binder strategy, which is my method of getting tenants to request a rent increase, which has worked really well. It's added significantly in the last 2 years to my income because rents skyrocketed, and the strategy actually works really well in a time when rents are going up. Happy tenants, low turnover, and a good rent increase. Still doing expert witness testimony. That seems to get I get a lot more inquiries the more lists that you get on and the more experience that you have. You'll have to write a CV, a curriculum vitae, which is like a resume, but targeted specifically on the industry that you're going to provide testimony for, basically explaining your experience in that field. It was well after reaching millionaire status. So 2018, net worth passed $1 million. In 2020, I added YouTube. This was the first time that I started making videos. And it started because I was in the Facebook groups, in the BiggerPockets forums, trying to answer questions. And I had the education for the industry now. In the beginning, I answered questions wrong, realized there were some things I needed to learn. So I actually educated myself more on the things I was weak on. But it took a lot of time. So I still have people every now and then who reach out and say, hey, can we take a call or have a Zoom? And it's getting kind of to where I might not have the bandwidth to do that. So I'm doing live streams once a week where I literally stay here until the questions are done. And I will still every now and then take a Zoom, but I'm going to have a couple emails back and forth first, find out where you're at in your investing, what your goals are, make sure I can actually help you. Because if you want to do flipping, do the Burr method, invest in stocks or crypto, or need relationship advice, I'm probably not the guy. But if you want to do buy and hold, small multifamily, house hacking, even single family, I try to share my information as much as I can. YouTube pays billions of dollars to everyone but me. I monetized my channel because I wanted to have control of the advertising. AdSense on YouTube doesn't really make a lot of money. I think my best month was around $500. I'm working 30 hours a week on YouTube before doing the live streams because it used to be around 10 hours a video. Now the live stream, this cuts it down to maybe 3 hours. So it's actually decreased the amount of time it took on YouTube to actually, I think, be a little more productive because I think this format where I get to answer questions, because I have no idea what questions, which I'm not even looking at yet, will spark in the conversation. I think this is a really productive format for this. So $500 a month for 30 hours a week. Someone that knows math will tell me that I'm not making a lot. But here's a stream of income that you can add if you have a strong social media following. So Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, whatever format you're on, can be YouTube as well. If you have people who watch your content, you can do really sneaky things like become an Amazon affiliate marketer. Or if you have enough of a following, you can have sponsors, you can have people who you can promote their materials. So here's something really sneaky that I do. I don't want to market my material and monetize it, because the point of my content is to help people reach financial freedom. And if I took money from them, that's counterproductive. So if I ever do write a book, I'm going to figure out what the narrowest margin possible is. If I ever do have a course, I'm going to figure out how to do it where you get the most value, where I'm really not even trying to make any money, but because teachable, where you usually put those on the platform, they got to make their money to put that out there. So there might be a time in the future where that happens, because that's the third phase, is what streams of income might exist for me in the future. But affiliate marketing, I make a video that says something like, so let me know if you've seen this. Here are the locks that I use on my rental properties. But I don't do clickbait, and I don't support something I don't actually like. I buy 2 of these locks for every rental unit. I put them on the exterior doors. I use them because the batteries last longer than a year. I've never had a tenant lockout. In all of the locks I've ever purchased, I think I had one that had an issue, and we found the issue installing it. So I've had very little problems with these Schlag coated locks. So I make a video. I put it on YouTube. In the link, in the description, because I say in the description below, I'm going to put a link to where I get these locks, right? It's not just the lock. As an Amazon affiliate, when somebody like you clicks on that link and goes to Amazon to look at that lock for 24 hours, anything you buy on Amazon, the affiliate person that you use the link to get to Amazon gets their tiny little percentage, pennies or whatever it is. But the weekend and the week following the time I did the lock video, there was about $1,400 in income from Amazon affiliate links, which that's not a bad thing. It's not costing anybody anything else. They don't charge you anything extra. It's just, since that link came from the affiliate is going to get paid for bringing you to Amazon. So affiliate marketing will grow as the channel grows, as the content gets watched by more people, as I do things like there should be a video coming out soon on what I do and how I do and why this book exists, which will have an Amazon link in it. Here's where I got the book. I actually sent one to Michael Zuber for his birthday. So that is a stream of income. I'm probably going to rely on input from the people who take in my content of, is a course something people are interested in? Because my YouTube channel is my course. And so I don't know if that's needed. At some point, there becomes so much interest in people saying, hey, can I get an hour of your time for a phone call? Where you take 10 of those in a week, it's like another job, because I get the information from the people. I've probably already had 2 or 3 emails to look up kind of where they live, the type of investing they want to do, some of the information to answer their questions. At some point, it would make sense to charge for that, because you want the person to have skin in the game. Because I don't know if it's somebody who's thinking, I might buy a rental in 5 years, or I might never buy one in my life. I should just go talk to this guy Dion for an hour. Or is it somebody who's saved up $20,000, has learned the area market average, has talked to a lender to find out what their options are, and can't decide between single family and small multifamily in their area because they don't know which one makes more sense, and they need just that little bit of looking in to really have an impact on that person's life? That's where it might make sense to charge for that. So not so much that my time is compensated, but that my time is directed toward the person who's going to actually benefit from it. So for that, I'm going to rely on you guys. So there is a meant to be 10-minute, but 33-minute rendition of what my streams of income were before I was a millionaire, once I became a millionaire, and what they're going to look like going forward. So I also plan on doing a book, because I know that we all have different forms of learning, 5 major ways of taking in data. Some of us are readers. We actually want to see it on paper. So I'll be doing that. But again, narrowest margin possible, just so the expense of doing it is covered. That should be before too long. So I'm actually going to go now to the questions. And remember, this is a nice short live stream that lasts as long as the questions come in. And you never know which questions are going to spark the right thing in the conversation that has an actual change in your investing strategy. So, howdy. Bill O'Connell. Before this start, my guess is 5 different. So 5, and then Andrew Wilkins. Howdy. Guess is 4. Was anybody paying attention? So W2, house hacking, which is a form of income because it's money I'm able to save that I wasn't before. Before being a millionaire, gaming, expert testimony, And then as a millionaire, rentals, YouTube, affiliate. Don't tell me I landed on 7 because that's the average. I'm missing something. There's got to be something. So might be 7. And then Tom, howdy. Howdy from Maryland and passing through VA to North Carolina. Thanks for saying what Maryland is, MD, because there's 50 states and memory issues. Does TPS count? Never heard if you receive compensation from there. No. This is a 501c3 nonprofit that actually does no monetary transactions. The benefit from the nonprofit helping people find non-driving jobs is that the CDL school gets to help their graduates find local driving positions, and they don't have to go over the road. Our graduates can go over the road. I just spent 4 weeks trying to talk them out of it. But it's not compensated. It's weird how sometimes things are more beneficial for your life if you don't charge. CJ, howdy. Your opinion is all you need for the average person is one stream of income. Use that to buy real estate, second stream, and let it build over the years. It's really accurate, especially if you have a W-2 that pays more than when I started working at the truck driving school. Wasn't making a lot. So making money from the video games and then the expert testimony later was important. But I really like the idea of having a source of income that you focus on. Like this is your main source of income. You develop your career, you invest in whatever that source of income is. For me, it's real estate. That's the focus for making money is on real estate. And I've said this in a few videos, so sorry for the next 20 seconds if you've already heard this. Warren Buffett says to diversify. Charlie Munger, his partner or person who's worked with for decades, says you don't diversify to become wealthy. You focus on one thing to become wealthy. And once you're wealthy, you diversify to protect your wealth. So yes, focusing on one thing to make sure it really produces income or has the best chance to, which is risky. Having that job is risky, but it's the way to have consistent income for lending, to get your debt to income ratio where it needs to be for lending, to have things like healthcare before we realize it's just an expense and you should have an asset pay for every expense. But I agree. Dawn, howdy. In the group, Chester, howdy, good evening. T. Stella, howdy. Not sure what the wow was for. Maybe I said something smart. It has to happen once a year. I'm allowed to say something, one thing smart. Pallavi, howdy. Good evening from snowy Illinois. Dawn, the job sucks. That's why they pay you to be there. Teach your children well, right? Yes, exactly. A job does suck. That is why they pay you to be there. Wonder if that was the smart thing I said. None your business. Howdy. What's up to the OG of the W-2 investor gang? The W-2 investor gang, exactly. That's a Facebook group. Kimberly, I think, puts that together. Yeah. Chester, the secret is live below your means until you get to the income snowball. And as long as passive income exceeds monthly expenses, that's financial independence. Exactly. There is a difference between financial independence and financial freedom. I covered it on an interview I did recently, which people I don't want to talk about yet. But in the interview, I was talking about, because I don't want to jinx it. Whenever you do an interview with somebody, you don't know if they're going to air it. So you don't want to say, oh, look, I was interviewed by blah, blah, blah. And then it doesn't come out and you're like, oh, oops. Financial independence is when your life is paid for by income that you don't have to sell your life 1 hour at a time for. Financial freedom is when you don't have to look at price tags. When the lumberjack landlord goes out and picks a couple of Lamborghinis if he wants to and gets to pick whichever color he wants, that's financial freedom. Chester. That story about becoming a lawyer and realizing they hated it is the story of Jaspreet Singh with the minority mindset. Absolutely. I listened to I actually watch a lot of Jaspreet stuff. And he talks about his family being immigrants from Punjab in India, or state in India, where you grow up to become a doctor. And that's like the only path you should take. And if you completely fail at that, then you should become a lawyer. So he went to law school. He passed the bar, but he doesn't work in law. He invests in real estate and does investing. It's one of the channels I recommend if somebody has a younger person in their family that they want to get into investing. But The three I used to recommend were Graham Stephan, Meet Kevin, and Jaspreet Singh of Minority Mindset. Graham Stephan, everything over 2 years ago, and Meet Kevin about the same now over 2 years ago. Their initial stuff when they focused on how money works was great. Once your channel gets that big, they shifted in what they talk about. Every now and then they'll still do like a basics video, which I watch and I send to a few people. Larry Chong, howdy. Would you share what your double pension police officer and Marine retirement plan would have looked like or added up to? It depends on how many years you do for a pension. If you do 20 years, I think it's around 50% of what you were making. So if I did 20 in each, I would have the income from one full-time job of either one. And law enforcement and Marine Corps, you don't make a lot of money in either one. So it never would have been a great, comfortable life. If you do more years, 25, 27, 30, you can increase the amount of the pension. So 10 years of investing in real estate, and I'm transparent on numbers. I just share the numbers. Profits in 2021, did my taxes a couple of weeks ago, but the profits, $128,000. I never made half of that as a police officer or in the Marines. So even if you put them both together, 40 years of work didn't equal what 10 years of investing did. As a truck driver, I was close. Oak Harbor Freight Lines, I was on track to make $115,000 the year they went on strike. So I was close with one job, but a pension for there would be 50% of that. So again, 40 years, more than 40 hours a week to make less than I'm making without having to get out of bed from 10 years of investing in real estate. And you can't house hack a pension, but I'm house hacking the real estate that's also paying me. So I don't know which way would have made me happier. I liked being in the Marines. I liked being a police officer. I liked the department I was at. I didn't really much care for the job. The thing I learned about law enforcement is you're dealing with somebody on the worst day of their life. No matter who they are or what they're doing, the reason they're talking to a police officer is they're on their way to jail. They're trying to talk their way out of jail, or something happened to them where they're the victim. So you never have positivity in your life. Then I go to work at the truck driving school, and literally everyone I encounter is doing something, investing in themselves, spending the time, energy, and effort to improve their life. Very different environment. Like my daughter at one time tried to explain to me how she was so much more happy that I wasn't a cop anymore because I come home happy. Like I'm a different person. NASCAR all out. Howdy. Just keep in mind the premium is a lot higher with 1/10 ounce coins. The premium is higher. It's just more use because I don't have coins for their value. I have coins for their versatility, so to use them. But you are right. If you're going to buy it as a store or to hope that the value goes up in the future, I would say 5-ounce bars are better than ounce or tenth. But you're right. Millennial Mike, howdy. It's the best looking amigo. What is that? I actually went to the range with Millennial Mike this week. Got some clips that you'll see in upcoming videos. It was a lot of fun. I definitely wouldn't want to get in a shootout with Mike unless he was on my side. You have phenomenal shooting skills. I was super impressed. Julie, howdy. Retirement accounts and the Dave Ramsey method is right for a majority of the population, but we are not average. So independently investing in real estate is a much greater benefit. Very much so. So if you're not going to invest and you want to retire at 59 and a half, retirement accounts are great. Dave Ramsey's steps of being anti-debt are great. Actually, Michael Zuber pointed out something I wasn't aware of. I've always said Dave Ramsey has 3 great steps everybody should use, and then I stopped listening. But I was wrong. The 7th baby step of Dave Ramsey's is to create wealth and give back. Okay, so he's got 4 steps I like. The first 3 and the last one. For the average person, it's great information. If you figure out how to put money to work and the power of leverage, and you take the time it takes to learn an industry like real estate, because it doesn't just happen overnight. I tried it overnight and had no education, no self-education, and I lost a ton of money for that whole first year. tried to quit, tried to give away the house, was underwater, couldn't do it. Once I educated myself, then what Dave Ramsey does and retirement accounts are, what's the word, anathema? CJ Chester. The main focus of the expert witness testimony is reasonableness and judgment. Sounds like. Yeah. So it depends on the case, and it could also depend on your level of testimony. If you're testifying against something that an expert should know, you need to be at expert level. If you're testifying or providing information on something that an average person would be aware of, and if you hold a CDL, you're an average driver, you're aware of certain laws, regulations, hours of service, that kind of stuff, then it's what's reasonable. I mean, almost every law enforcement officer can tell you reasonable and necessary are the two words you have to study the most in the academy or in the, what do the troopers call it? Is it the academy? Why the academy for them too? Those are two words you learn to ingrain in almost everything. So when you're doing testimony, you're not saying in a perfect world, this is what should have happened. You're saying a normal person with this level of education or knowledge on the subject, this is what would be reasonable. Yep. Dale, howdy. Jones O, howdy. You spoke with CRST and Swift. I'm sorry for what my face did out loud there. Recruiters today found out applications for both. As someone with no experience, I'm not focused on experience. Of course, I want money, but experience makes me marketable. Going over the road. If you enjoy it, that's great. That's all that really matters. I do spend at least 4 weeks talking to each one of our students, convincing them that over the road is usually not the way to go. There are a couple times it makes sense. But if you like money, there is twice as much money in local driving as there is in over the road. So if you like money, it might not be the way to go. Whatever you do, don't let an over the road company talk you into leasing a truck. Can I say that story without naming the company? There are players that are so bad that they will hire you and introduce you to somebody who's been working there for 3 months who has leased a truck and is making a ton of money. So for 3 months, they talk you into leasing a truck. You then lease a truck. The person that you talk to is now at the 6th month, has filed bankruptcy. Their truck is being released to the person that they then introduce you to talk them into leasing a truck, because at 3 months, you're making a ton of money. Rinse and repeat. That company makes hundreds of millions of dollars from releasing the truck to the people they're scamming into leasing trucks. So don't do that. I'm not actually sure what I hate more, somebody recommending an LLC for rental properties when you don't need it, or somebody who says over the road's the way to go. If you want to, it's totally fine. But if somebody tried to talk and pontificate on the benefits of over the road, that would probably irritate me more than the LLC would. I should probably make a channel for the truck driving school. Alan, howdy. Jones O, based on experience, which mega carrier is best for a beginner? Mega carrier, beginner. Don't put those words together. I like Werner and Schneider. If you literally had to go over the road, those are the two companies that I would say, okay, maybe. The two that you named, no. Yeah, so Werner or Schneider, one of those two. But at all costs, like the ones you named are not physically not allowed on the property of any of our campuses. No paraphernalia, no posters, no nothing. Yeah. So I didn't say their name. I didn't say they suck. I just said you named a couple, and holy crap, they suck. Okay. Jones O says sell a course at cost. Absolutely. So that's how it would go. I'd figure out what teachable charges, that'd be the cost. Because so I provide information for Michael Zuber's one rental at a time course, how to get started one rental at a time. And I'm a teaching assistant for BiggerPockets, a stream of income I missed. So I don't get paid from Michael Zuber. BiggerPockets pays a stipend. So that's a source of income as a millionaire and going forward. So I would generally say never pay for a course. If you're going to pay $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000, you're better off just taking that, putting it into part of a down payment on a property that you lose. Like, you'll learn more there. But if you have somebody like Michael Zuber, who has over 7,000 videos, or around 7,000 videos now on his channel, or BiggerPockets, who has thousands of hours of podcasts, and the information you need is there for free, but you would have to dedicate thousands of hours to listening to the material, taking notes, figuring out what applied to you and what didn't. They both offer a course for a few $100s to take all of the information that they have, filter it down to, here's what would work in a curriculum. This is what the order of operations should be on how you learn it. Here's some exercises to improve your skills in that. And here's our contact, our people for teaching assistants to provide feedback. Sure, a few $100s, absolutely. So if I was going to do a course, the reason I wouldn't do one before I had 100 videos is I would literally go, hey, if you want to be really good at investing in real estate, just like me, and reach financial freedom in 10 years or less, here's 100 videos. Like, that's a course. But it's coming up to 200 videos on the channel. I'll be getting that pretty soon. And sometimes there's great content. Somebody asks a great question, I have a great answer. And then sometimes there's 5 minutes of me oversharing something that's just funny because I don't know when to turn my mouth off. When I filter that down to, here's exactly what the course would be, and this is what the curriculum, then it might be worth the cost, because then you have skin in the game and you'll take it serious, of whatever the cost cost me to put together. The course cost me to put together. Words are hard. Janet, howdy. How are you? Hola from, ¿cómo está? Okay. Hello from Torrance, California. Muy mal. ¿Y usted? Jones-O. A well-organized YouTube playlist renders a course unnecessary. There you go. But then you could trim the fat, so a course is a good idea, but book way better, but I don't read. You better read it for the audio version. So I am trying to read Michael Zuber's second book, 15 Conversations with Real Estate Millionaires, for Audible. And it is kicking my ever-loving backside. I've had to download 2 or 3 different apps that filter the sounds a certain way that Audible wants it. And I've got the peaks down and something else I've got right. So there's 3 things they monitor, 2 things I've got right. But it doesn't like how silent my recording area is. It says that the times between when I'm talking are too quiet. So I'm now going to try some background noise or turn a fan on or something. I don't know. But I really want to get that book recorded for Audible for Michael to get it out, because some of us are readers. I love to read. I used to read a book a week. Way before it was good books, I was reading like Dragonlance, Forgotten Realms, Stephen King, Dean Koontz, like books. But life happens. Have 3 kids, have jobs, have self-managed rental properties. So I can listen. So there are people who don't have time to read that book, but they can listen to it. So I want to make sure we get that out. So if I do a book, there will definitely be an Audible version whenever I figure out how Audible works. Janelle, howdy. Janelle, what are some of your favorite real estate investing quotes? Well, some are really common that a lot of people know. Time in the market beats timing the market. One of my favorite quotes that stopped me from investing for 10 years was my brother. He said, when I buy a rental property, in 11 years, I get my... That was a quote I used for 10 years to stop me from investing in real estate, because I thought that was stupid. You have your money. It's yours. You're going to buy a rental property so that in 11 years, you can get that money back? That doesn't sound very smart. Until I realized when he buys a rental property, he's not spending money. He's moving it. He's taking the money from the bank and putting it in the property. It's still there. It's still his. He can sell. He can cash out refinance. He can take out a home equity line of credit. Now, instead of sitting in the bank, paying him $10 or $20 a year in interest, it's paying him a couple $1,000s a month in profit. So that's a quote that is my favorite because it screwed me over for 10 years. Pay yourself first So like I said, some of these are really common. Pay yourself first. One of the reasons why retirement accounts work for the average person is because the money is invested into their retirement account before they see it. A lot of times when we, as a human, see our money, We spend our money. We buy stupid things. And we drink stuff. Oh. Almost made it an hour without having to take a drink. That almost killed me. So paying yourself first, making investing as automated as you can. A lot of people will say, if they're saving for a retirement account, and so this is probably going to be a clip I'm going to take out of the video and make a short of, if I can get it down to a minute. People say to invest 15% of your income into your retirement accounts. My minimum goal was 100% of my income from my job can be saved to invest. Because if you need any of the money from your job, you are not financially free. So the goal is to develop those side hustles, streams of income, rental properties, dividend portfolio, 4% rules with stocks, grow a business to where someone else runs it, whatever that format is, to have money coming in that you don't have to sell your life 1 hour at a time for, so that any money that you get coming in from your job just goes to the investing pile, because that's when you've reached financial independence. Wonder if that was a minute. We'll find out later. Katie Kratz. Howdy. And actually, Janelle, there's probably some more quotes that'll pop up later in my head. Dion, thanks for the videos. I've found you recently and have already learned a lot. Keep it coming. Awesome. That is why I do this. I originally was answering questions in the BiggerPockets Facebook groups, the Real Estate Rookie Facebook groups, the BiggerPockets forums, and I saw mostly the same questions come up. Stuff like, should I have an LLC when I buy my first rental property? And I would answer the same question over and over and over, and then sometimes take a phone call. It is much easier when I have a 10-minute video that explains I used debt to get out of bad debt. So whenever I see the debt question come up, I'll send that video. I also post that video in a lot of Dave Ramsey groups just to see how long it takes me to get kicked out. It could be a drinking game. Don't need a game to drink, though. Thanks, Katie, for coming. It's awesome. Alan, howdy. Hi. How do you calculate a fourplex? Would you ever buy a fourplex that doesn't cash flow right away? No. I would never buy a property hoping for appreciation or that the price would go up in the future or that the rents would go up in the future. Someone let me know if it's still on mute because I've done that. And in one live stream, I did it at the end as a joke. I think a lot of syndicators are going to get in trouble in the next couple of years. This is actually probably a direct quote from Michael Zuber of One Rental at a Time, because it's a world I don't invest in. I like 30-year fixed rate debt, so I stay 4 units or less. But a lot of syndications have seen, like in my market, just regular rentals are seeing 20 to 40% rent increases in 2020 and 2021. So we had a pandemic and rents skyrocketed. So some people are investing in syndications where they're projecting 2023, 2024, 10% rent increases, 5% rent increases. We have no guarantee that there's going to be a rent increase in the future. I would not buy something that didn't get me a yield that was strong enough for me to make the investment. Learn your area average. Take 60 to 90 days. Again, this is right out of One Rental at a Time. Take 60 to 90 days to learn your area average and find out what the average market yield is. If it's 4%, I would look for 5 or 6%, maybe 7. In my area, up until the last couple of years, I was finding yields in the 7 to 8%, so I shot for a 10. I did buy one where I thought I was going to get a 9, but everything else about the deal was right, side by side, garages in the middle, washer dryer in each unit, 2 bedrooms or more, in an area next to several economic drivers. Like there was all these other reasons why I'd take a 9%, but I wouldn't do it if it wasn't going to make money. And I wasn't going to do it at the average. Now the average, because of not even low supply, but the supplies are around the same, demand is through the roof. It's harder to find deals. So I've got to keep studying because it changes every now and then what the area average is. And whatever that average is, I'm going to be looking for deals that are slightly better than that. So how do you calculate a fourplex? So yield is your cash on cash return on investment. Annual profit divided by cost to acquire. Your annual profit is the money left after principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and setting aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. So you set aside money for future expenses. And for me, what I do is 5% for vacancy, 10% for repairs and maintenance. So 15% of gross rents are set aside. Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance are paid. What is left every month is profit. So if there was no profit, I would not buy the deal. If the profit wasn't enough to make the yield good, so add up the 12 months, that's your annual profit divided by your cost to acquire. Cost to acquire is down payment, closing costs, immediate repairs. So what did it cost you to get that property? That it could include cash for keys, an eviction, a long lease with rents below area average market, the things that will cost you money to own that property. Add all that together, divide your annual profit by cost to acquire. I'm looking for, in my market, a 10% or better cash on cash return. I have an offer that I made on a property, a fourplex that I found today. Well, I found it Friday, made the offer yesterday, reconfirmed the offer today. They came back with, please send us your best and final. So I sent back an offer that included my best and final is exactly what it was. So I reaffirmed with the DocuSign that it's the same and included, if you would like 50,000 less, ask me again tomorrow. So we'll find out tomorrow if they took my confirmed offer today of what I offered on Friday or yesterday. So no, not unless it cash flowed day one. I have purchased, so my fourplex cash flowed even with house hacking. My duplex did not cash flow while I lived there. I run the numbers on a house hack like it's the year after I've moved out and all of the units are rented. So when I moved into the duplex, I was paying $300 a month towards the mortgage. Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. That's what portion was left for rent. So it wasn't cash flowing while I lived there, while house hacking. But once I moved out, that next year, it would have met my 10% cash on cash return. When I moved into the fourplex, even with me living there, I beat a 10% cash on cash return. So it depends on the area, the fourplex, and a whole bunch of other factors. But I invest for cash flow, not for appreciation or anticipated rent increases. David M. Howdy. How do you make money playing video games? Came late. Sorry if you've covered this. So a long time, that still happens now, but a long time ago in the 90s, there was a game called Ultima Online. And there were items in the game that were really hard to get, or there was actual land in the game. You could buy the deed to a house, gather the resources to the house, build the house, put things in the house that other people could see when they played around your thing. But the maps were limited in size. So as more and more people played, the land became more scarce. There was actually places you couldn't put houses. So there became a real estate market of buying these fake graphics of houses in a game that don't really exist. And you buy and sell. I sold some castles for $1,400. Castles covered several grid squares on the map, and it took, it could take you months to get one together. But I was buying and selling and trading properties, kind of like a wholesaling flipper, to get to the point where I had them. At some point, the video game doubled the size of the map. They said our server now has, what is it, Tremel and something else with an F. We now have twice as much land. So the $1,400 castles became $300 castles. With EverQuest, there were items in the game that were really hard to farm, and you could sell them on an auction house. So you could sell the currency. There were, websites in other countries that would gather the currency and then sell the currency, because it could take you a month to make 100,000 of whatever the currency is, or you can pay $20 for the currency from a website. Well, that $20 to the person in another country where the dollar is much stronger is making multiples of what the daily average wage is there playing that video game. And they were like wholesalers and flippers. I would make the money in the game, or my kids would make the money in the game, using that child labor to my benefit so they could play the game. I would sell the stuff that they didn't need, that I didn't want, to the websites. And for several years, I made $300 to $500 a month as a consistent side hustle income playing a game with my kids. I did it at home so I could spend more time with my kids. This is an overshare. It's one of those times if I wasn't alive, I could cut it out, but I'm going to overshare. When we filed for divorce, I was one of those guys who let the spouse run all the finances. I found out that for 3 months, no bills were paid. No mortgage, no electric, no cable, nothing was paid for 3 months. And this was about the end of my era of playing EverQuest. She tried to run me over with a car, went to jail. I started looking at the bills. So I found out about all this debt that I thought was being taken care of the whole time. I sold everything in EverQuest and got over $5,000 in pretty much one weekend to then catch up on all the bills. So I was able to maintain the house, the cars, the utilities, and then keep custody of the kids because of a video game. And then I've never played EverQuest since because it crushed me that I lost everything that was in the game. After that was World of Warcraft. So whatever the current game is right now, today people are playing New World, and there's some other ones where you can create an account and people will buy that entire account from you because you've done the work to get the account where they want it. Changes all the time. You sign an agreement with the gaming thing saying that you won't do that, so they can kick you out of the game at any time. It's not like you're breaking laws, but they can kick you out of playing that game. Ellen, there was a fourplex where each unit was $550 each. Conservative rents in that area are $1,700. For more context, this would be my first purchase using an FHA loan. Okay. All right. Thanks for more clarification. I have bought a lot of properties that lost money based on current rents. So that is a great question. Thanks for the clarification. A lot of investors say, I want to buy an empty place so I can set the rents. Or if you're going to buy a property, you have to base it on what are the current rents. I have the binder strategy, which is it gets my tenants to request a rent increase. It doesn't happen right away. So if there's a month-to-month lease, I'm going to wait 2 months to do this. So there will be a couple months at the current rent value. If you're in an area where there's rent control, this might not be the best option. At that point, tenant turnover or empty places is the better option. But I live in Washington State, where there's actually a revised code of Washington that says rent control is illegal here. So currently, there isn't rent control. There are some creative cities trying to put in things that are very much like rent control. Like in Seattle, you have to give 6 months notice to do more than a 10% increase to rents. If the tenant doesn't like it, you have to pay for their relocation. Somehow they think that's not rent control. So I've bought properties where the current rents, I showed 2 investor friends of mine a duplex that I purchased last May where the current rents were around $1130, and it wouldn't have made money. And they said, that's a terrible deal. Area average rents were $1,500, $1,600. 2 months later, 2 months and 4 months later, because there was a little bit of a lease remaining on one, I did the binder strategy. Both of them went to $1,460. Now it's getting my 10% return. Happy tenants, no turnover. So yes, I would buy a fourplex. If you're using FHA, you're going to owner occupy, which means while you're living there, don't run the numbers look at the next year once you've moved out and that unit is rented. That's how I run the numbers to make sure it's a good deal. Because I'm not running the numbers to find out how much I'm going to make. That's a mistake a lot of people think. I want to know the yield so I know how much I want to make every month. I want to know the yield so I can look at 5 different properties and figure out which one's the best one to pursue or the best 2 to pursue to see which one I get. I'm not actually concerned with the dollar value as long as the yield is what I want. But I live in a kind of expensive area. In the cheapest duplexes I've bought were around $300. I got one for $290, one for $325. So they're all kind of in that range. Till last year, the one from last year was $400,000. So prices have gone up. But I'm not. So if I was in a cheap area where properties were $30,000 or $50,000, a 10% yield might not be worth the time and effort and energy it takes to manage that property. So then I would look at a different calculation. Maybe I want to make $100 or $200 per door, plus I want the yield to be where I want it. In my area, I look at yield. I don't have to look at a per door basis. I'm averaging $630 per door, and I only know that because someone asked me, what am I averaging per door? Like I had a threshold. I didn't have a threshold because it's expensive enough in my area where a 10% yield is enough money to worry about. If I was in a cheaper area, I would look at maybe changing my metrics to find a way that made sure the property was one worth going for. Chester, Zuber said that and then my chat moved. Zuber said that in his daily show this morning. Focus on one income producing asset strategy to gain wealth and diversify only after gaining wealth to preserve wealth. Absolutely. Yep. I think he says it kind of often. And I think the first 10 times I heard Michael Zuber say that, I couldn't remember, just like now, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger. Charlie Munger's name for some reason just doesn't stick in my head. Katie, Dion, how do you handle the stress of having multiple mortgages at the same time? Aren't you constantly scared someone will move out and you can't afford multiple rents? Advice for a newbie. That is a brilliant question. That's actually a good question. And when we're first starting out, that seems like a major concern to where you can lose sleep. And if you're going to lose sleep, you need to find what's called a SWAN. You want to sleep well at night account. We have reserves. The bank will require you to have at least 3 months of reserves. So when we invest in a property, so here's my opinion. If you need a mortgage to come in, no, if you need rent to come in to pay your mortgage, you're doing it wrong. When I had 7 or less units, I kept $10,000 in an account that I didn't touch. That was for emergencies. If a roof went when I didn't have any money, that's where the money would come from. If people didn't pay their rent, that's where the mortgage would have came from. So at 7 units or less, I had a single family house, a duplex, and a duplex, and a duplex. That was my 7 units. So there were 4 mortgages. Here's how I alleviated the stress. And I don't know that I would do the same. It made sense at the time because my single family house had a mortgage at 6% interest rate. Once I got to those 4, I focused and paid off the house. So I had 4 properties with 3 mortgages, $10,000 in reserves. Someone could pay, and so take out my first tenant. In 10 years, I've never had a later missed payment. Not one, not even during the pandemic. So I had reserves just in case. And as your portfolio grows, lenders will want you to have at least 3 months. Some will want more of your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance payments sitting in an account that you don't use. If you want to be creative, they can look at a retirement account and they'll recognize 50% of a retirement account as a reserve. You don't have to touch it, tap it, or take it out. They just need you to prove that it's in there. So the reserves help me sleep at night. I've heard a lot of people talk about, I would rather have a 10-unit apartment complex than one house. Because if I have 10 apartments and one is empty, I have 9 tenants paying their rent. If I have a house and it's empty, I have nobody paying the rent, right? So that's kind of how a new investor would look at it. But here's how we start to look at things as we evolve our mind. The money that it took to get a 10-unit apartment complex, you need 25 to 30% down for most apartment complex purchases because that's commercial lending. That amount of money would not get you one house at 5% down, 10% down, 15% down. You would have 4 or 5 houses. So if you had one house empty, you'd still have 4 paying. Apartments have more turnover. So on average, in the United States, people stay in apartments an average of 2 years. In houses or small multifamily, the average person is there 8 years. So in 10 years, take out my first tenant, I've had a total of 2 tenant turnovers in 10 years. So it's actually really rare with small multifamily. If you have a property like Michael Zuber and Matt the Lumberjack Landlord, if both had one that just had a bunch of turnover because there was something wrong with that area, that's the one you offload. I haven't had to do that. I don't keep my properties close together because then you're drawing tenants from one source. What I like about having single family or small multifamily is that my goal is that they're all at least 10 miles apart, close to several economic drivers, a base, a port, a college, a hospital, a Boeing, Amazon terminal, population of 100,000, so that several things would have to change for all of my tenants to not pay their rent. Even during the pandemic, I've never had a later missed payment. I diversify the tenant base. I have 1/3 military, 1/3 working or retired, and 1/3 Section 8. So a prolonged government shutdown, pandemic, or stock market crash can impact really 1/3 of my portfolio. Reserves, diversified property locations, diversified tenant base. My biggest fear as an adult, and I was thinking of making this the video topic, was the fears an investor has. When we're starting out, this is a very logical fear. What if they don't pay? Then I have to pay. You're right. But when you're collecting your rents, you collect the rents, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, but you're setting aside 10% for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. Someone not paying their rent is part of vacancy. So that money fills up that reserve account. Once that reserve account is full, then that money goes into the investing fund, not to the lifestyle fund, because then you need it, but to the investing fund to make you invest faster. But when you have someone not paying, that's like a vacancy. That's what those funds are for. I hope that helped with that question. And the reason I wanted the video is because when you first start investing, it's what if somebody doesn't pay the rent? What if somebody trashes my house? They're going to trash your house. It's not a fear, it's a given. But you're setting aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy. That's where the funding will come for that. Other fears of a new investor: what if housing prices dip? Well, in 2009 and 10, when housing prices dipped in our area, rents went up. So a buy and hold investor did great. Flippers, anybody who borrowed more than 105% who had an adjustable rate mortgage, not so great. 30-year fixed rate debt, don't care if prices go down. With dollar cost averaging, purchasing just like the stock market, that means I would buy more properties because I'd have more buying power. As you invest and you reach financial freedom, here's the actual fear that I have. So to file this away as a nerd who literally has a D&D map on the wall, this is not a blue screen or a green screen. Here's my fear. We develop wormhole technology that opens up the ability to live on other planets, and we double the size of the map, just like in the D&D game or the game Ultima Online, where they double the size of the map, so housing prices drop, rents drop because there's more land to live on. That's the fear you have when you've reached financial freedom. I don't care if my job goes away. I don't care if housing prices drop by 50%. I don't care if rents drop by 50%. I still won't be paying out of my own pocket because I also don't over leverage. I want to stay at 70% leverage or less. And right now I'm at around 54% or so. I need to do the math on that. So I've diversified a portfolio and I've invested with strategic debt to where if all of my tenants stopped paying rent, a little over $24,000 a month stopped coming in, $11,000 in mortgages that would be going out, it's months before I would have to worry about that. And that's if 100% of them stopped. And I've never had one late or missing payment in 10 years. So I don't have that fear. I'm hoping I can get you there, because a real fear before you have rentals is, what if your job goes away? What if that industry goes away? I wouldn't want to be a real estate agent or a lender in the next year because transactions are going to plummet. This is a prediction where Michael Zuber has the crystal ball and he sees it coming, and he's calling this one right. When transactions plummet, prices will continue to go up, but lenders and agents are going to have less transactions to run a business on. I hope that helped, Katie. Chester, random book aside, I finished Chris Voss' book, Never Split the Difference. I highly recommend it. Yep. And I'm about to start Landlording on Autopilot by Mike Butler. Good choice. Millennial Mike. First of all, Dion, we would be on the same side taking on the LLC maximalist. Yes. Can't wait for your Bitcoin debate. You'll do great. Yes. Looking forward to a Bitcoin debate with Rylas on Michael Zuber's channel. That should be coming out next Monday. Jones O. How do I find twice as much money local? Oh, Oak Harbor Freight Lines, Old Dominion, Redaway, YRC, Google LTL companies, and look for those kind of companies. They pay more, they pay by the hour. So if you go over the road, you're not going to be compensated by the hour. So they're not even going to know when you hit 40 hours a week. So you're going to somehow skirt the federal regulations on getting overtime. So you're not going to get overtime. Your entry-level training wage job at a company like Old Dominion is over $28 an hour. So your first year, you're going to make, with overtime, $75,000 to $90,000 as an entry-level wage, whereas an over-the-road driver is generally going to start off around $45,000 to $50,000, with way more than what you would call overtime. And Julius, yep, I won't say those words out loud, but that's absolutely true. Sure wish I finished training. And then my chat moved. There we go. Yes, and Mike, I knew we would be on the same side, but I was very impressed with your shooting skills. Jones O. And no, I just want to see what I can see on the road. Cool. T. Stella. Howdy. Do you have any advice on finding the best general contractor you can trust? Please and thank you in advance. So when it comes to finding contractors, once you develop a relationship with some, that it's a little easier. But when you're first starting out, I recommend using the Thumbtack app, like Thumbtack. It's a great way to find contractors, get quotes, read reviews. And I've had good luck with it because those contractors know that I'm going to get to leave a review when the project is done. So I'm going to get several quotes, usually just through emails, on what the project is to find the contractor. If they're on Thumbtack, you can read the reviews. they're tech savvy enough to at least be on an app. So you're generally not going to find the contractor that's avoiding things like, a license or insurance. You're actually going to have somebody who is above board. That's what I've had the best luck with, the Thumbtack app. Local REI meetups is another good one. So you can go and get like face-to-face reviews from other investors in the area. I think that's, and sometimes your agent might know the right people, and it depends on your relationship with your agent. I have one agent, I actually use his handyman and his contractors, and I have another agent, I think, who uses mine. So it just depends on who you know. Joneso, come on. What did they do? Tell us. Thoughts on CR England? Well, this is far enough different in the conversation that if you were here before, you might know that I think CR England is the company that talks people into leasing a truck. So now you know what I think of them. Lumberjack landlord, howdy. We're not talking about the big news because it might not happen. Just because you do something doesn't mean they're going to put it out there. But I'm hopeful. It was a lot of fun, though. Tom Jones, email me. There you go. Tom and Jones, if you guys both email me, I will connect you with emails so you don't have to put your emails in the chat here. Chester, I've never heard of it being too quiet for narrating for an audiobook. Interesting. Maybe try adding an air purifier. It's what I'm going to do. An air purifier or like a space heater or something. But it's the third thing. And you can adjust it to make it the RMS fuzzier, basically. But then it makes the spikes too high. So if I figure out Audible, life can be a lot easier. Literally 8 hours straight one day trying to figure that out. I need a new computer because did you know you're not allowed to smash it against the wall? Lumberjack landlord. One of Dion's favorite quotes is, "Buy me that bobblehead." That's not exactly how she said it. A friend of mine saw the lumberjack landlord's bobblehead, and she said, "We are never sleeping together again until you buy me that bobblehead." So apparently she liked it. Keith, howdy. Took a message back and it's going to make me lose sleep and wonder what it was forever now. Chester, sound is good. Sound is back on. Good. Thank you. Keith, howdy. Rentals, metals, stocks, guns and ammo, survival gear, piano tuning. Have had 15 exchange students from 8 different countries working on multiple passports. Nice. So rentals, metals, good, stock, guns. Done. I have a friend. I have enough guns. I think how many did I take to the range the other day with Mike? I think 1, 2, 3, 4. So I think I have like 8. But one of the things we talked about is when the zombie apocalypse comes, you don't need all the guns. You just need one. So you can take all the stuff from the guy who got prepared. Wolfmaster 82. Howdy. Alan. Thanks, Dion. Hopefully your offer gets accepted. I am hopeful too. Things are getting bid up. I'm not even at asking, so we'll see. But do the work, keep making the offers, something will happen. Julie, I have a duplex that has rents that are $1,500 per month. I have not raised rents in 3 years. Off the top of your head, what percentage of increase do you think will be appropriate? So I think what we need to do, Julie, is to take your brain and take out the part of your brain that associates what a person should pay for rent with what they paid last year. That is what works in normal years. When we have something like a pandemic or a war or anything that can greatly impact rents, area average rents set rents. If I looked at any of my rents, and so I just did the binder strategy, talked about it on Michael Zuber's channel about a month ago, talked about it today because all the numbers have come in. It was a $335 increase, which was basically a 20% increase. If I went to the tenants and said, hey, we're going to raise your rent 20%, $335, which is factually what happened. That is the end result of the meeting. I would be a jerk and they would be angry and probably would have moved out. But since I did the binder strategy, your rents are at $1,500. What are area average rents? If they're 1,400 for the same number of bedrooms, a rent increase doesn't make any sense. If it's 1,900, what the tenant suggests, that increase is what will make the most sense. So area average rents set rents, not what the person paid last year. And the person's situation doesn't dictate what they can pay either. We have fair housing laws. You can't discriminate. So if you said, I've got this couple, they both have jobs, and I've got this single dad who's got 2 kids and 1 income, I'm going to raise their rent $300 and his rent $100 because I care. You just discriminated against this couple. Area average rents set rents. So find out what that is, and then I would suggest the binder method. And if you're not local, do it through email. I've done that with the Housing Authority, Section 8. I've used that. I know Matt, the lumberjack landlord, does his binder method through email. This is what the comps are in the area. This is what you're at. What you're at. What do you think would be fair? So that's a good question, and it's the way most investors think. Before the pandemic, I would do a 5% increase every other year. But property values have shot up so much in the last 2 years. Pretty much every county tax assessor on the planet, in the country, is looking at those going, hey, here's your new evaluation. Here's your tax change next year. Insurance companies are looking, wow, the price of that property, the price of supply chain issues, cost of wood, labor issues, the price to replace that building has gone up. So here's your new cost. If you're not setting rents based on area average rents, you're going to quickly fall behind and run into problems with taxes, insurance, that kind of stuff. That was a great question, Julie, though. Thanks. Anna, howdy. Very good observation of training to a single wage job from grade school. It all makes sense. Thank you. Fairly certain that is from Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He talks about it often. I think he talks about the Fords and the Rockefellers donated to build schools with the caveat of the school needs to be run the way a factory is, because with some revolution, not technology revolution, Eli Whitney with the cotton gin, something where the technical revolution, where we had warehouses, we needed people to do that. So I'm pretty sure that's where I got that from. Johnny Cashflow Ramirez, howdy, nice name. Sup Real Estate Freaks, awesome. Chester. On to the rental questions. Aside from Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Cashflow Quadrant from Mindset, what are some books you're setting up, processes, and systems you'd recommend for new real estate investors? The book on managing rental properties by Brandon Turner and his wife, Heather. For setting up systems, I don't know that there are very many books that I would recommend for that. For me, books are about mindset and getting your mind right to know you're going to do things like sacrifice for 5 years so that the next 5 years you don't have to. So Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a big mental shift. One Rental at a Time is the book that gives you like Rich Dad, Poor Dad is great, but doesn't kind of give you any direction. It helps you think. One rental at a time literally says, once you get to 4, this is what happens. So your goal is to get to 4. Don't think of getting to 20 or 100 or 112. If you can get to 4, your life has changed. I would be more apt to recommend One Rental at a Time YouTube channel, Lumberjack Landlord YouTube channel, Millennial Mike's YouTube channel, Matsky Finance's YouTube channel, April Crosley's YouTube channel. I'm probably forgetting a few there. Graham Stephan and Meet Kevin, everything older than 2 years. Minority Mindset. I think some of their content, Richest Man in Babylon and Think and Grow Rich, they've been around, I think, over 100 years. Those are kind of like classics that are also mindset books, because they don't tell you how to currently invest in real estate. A lot of things have changed in 100 years. But the idea of paying yourself first, the idea of compound interest, things really translate well out of those books still today. So Richest Man in Babylon and Think and Grow Rich. Keith, if you have 10 single-family homes, your liabilities are not attached to each other. So you spread them out. If you have a 10-door apartment and one tenant has a fire, they are all damaged. Correct. And the 10-unit apartment complex is drawing tenants from one area. one or two economic drivers from that area go away, you're greatly impacted. Whereas if your properties are spread out more than 10 miles apart, they're also a more diversified tenant base. But that's a good point. With me though, the big difference between 10 units and single family or small multifamily is the lending structure. 5 units or more generally puts you in commercial loans, which doesn't have 30-year fixed rate debt, usually. So that's why I'm staying in 4 units or less. Con, howdy. I can't find any deals that make sense, sitting on cash, waiting, hoping for a crash in the market to pick up a good deal. So here's a couple of things to think of. As you're saving money, you're increasing the amount of money you have for down payment, closing cost, immediate repairs, and reserves. So you're opening up each month or week or however long it takes you to add money to that pool. You're growing the assets that you can look at. If you're looking at single family, think about adding small multifamily. If you're looking at small multifamily, but you don't want single family because they don't work in your area, maybe look for houses with ADUs. Maybe take the circle, the footprint you're looking at, and expand it. What's happening out in suburbs past where you've been looking. There's a lot of ways of doing this where I have money sitting in an account. I'm ready to buy the next deal. I'm looking every day. And yes, I look at a lot that don't make sense. I look at a few that do make sense. I make an offer. Somebody else has a more attractive offer. It's not always price. Sometimes it's ability to close or higher earnest or whatever's more attractive to that seller. But you only need one. Keep looking every day, keep adding to your savings because you open up more doors, and look at different asset classes in your area, and then look at shifting where your area is. That's pretty much the boat that we're all in. And the market shifts. If you're not looking every day, if you say something like, oh, I'm going to wait till about a year when the prices come down. If the prices come down in a year, it's probably going to be because interest rates really went up, which means you're going to pay more. So it didn't make any sense to wait for them to come down. Rents might keep going up for the next year. So next year, investors will pay more because their yield is going to be based on higher rents. In almost all situations, to me, it never makes sense to sit back and say, I'm going to wait for a crash or correction. If you're doing the work every day and you're watching for a crash or correction, you will benefit from it if you're ahead of the curve when it starts to happen. But yeah, there's some advice. Different asset classes, expanding what you're looking for because your capital keeps increasing, and then looking at where you're investing. You've got this. Chester. Unrelated follow-up. Do you have a list of vendors for standardized materials? For example, Lumberjack Landlord recommends the American Flooring Corporation for LVP flooring. I don't. I do recommend not going to Lowe's or Home Depot for flooring. Find a local floor trader. I use the floor trader of Tacoma, or Tacoma Floor Trader. Not sure what their name is. I should probably know that. I know where the building is. For flooring, I go there. I do use the same paint company. It's like the most common paint company out there. Why can't I think of their name too? It's a major paint company, so I don't use anything specialized. So no, I don't have a standard list of vendors. I do compare. Like I have a standard list of lenders that I'll use, but each transaction I check with each one to see who's got the best rates, terms, buy down rates, compare everything to make sure and let them all see what the competitors are offering. When I have I had a tree at my single family house that was too close to the building, and insurance said it needed to be pulled back. I just wanted the tree gone. So I got 4 quotes from the Thumbtack app from tree companies in the area. Now my family does trees. I will never touch a tree again in my life, but I got these 4 quotes. And then I shared the 4 quotes with the contractors and said, here's what your competition is doing. I went with the one willing to beat the competition. I do the same thing with vendors. If you go into a flooring company and you're looking at their LVP and it has enough to do your job, and you've looked at 2 or 3 different companies, compare their prices and show them what the competition has if it's similar. A lot of people will talk about having a contractor build a deck, but getting a few quotes for that, but won't take the time to have 3 or 4 emails with vendors on other projects like trees, because they don't think that's normal, and it is normal. They don't think it's normal for lenders, and it was actually a lender who's the one who taught me that this is how you get me to get you a better rate. You provide me somebody else's information with a lower rate so that I could take it to my boss to say, in order to keep your business, this is what we need to beat. Ronald Zion. Howdy. Dion, two-part question. Okay, I'll go for the first one first. What percentage of tenant rent should a newbie set aside for what ifs? So you want reserves depending on the size of your portfolio. So as your portfolio scales to increase size, you're going to increase the amount of reserves. At least that's what I recommend. When you're buying a property, even if you get to the point like Michael Zuber and Matt the Lumberjack Landlord, where you have a reserve pile that you don't touch. So you can look at a rental to see what the cash flow is going to be without having to set aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy, because you have your portfolio doing that. I still look at each property as a standalone purchase by itself. With this property, if I were to set aside 10% for repairs and maintenance and 5% for vacancy, that's what works in my area. I've never had a vacancy, but I still set aside 5% because I could have a time where somebody doesn't pay. So I know that property can manage itself. For repairs, maintenance, and CapEx, some investors separate those out. 10% for me covers everything. And even in years where I've replaced a roof, I've never come close to spending 10% of gross rents. So in the beginning, those are numbers that work for me. If you're buying an older building that needs more updating, you might need to increase those numbers. I don't think I would reduce those numbers. If you're in an area where the vacancy rate is 0, I would still have 5% because you might have bed bug infestation and whatever you have, however much time it takes to not get that fixed. You might have, somebody mentioned you have a 10 unit and there's a fire in one, they're all damaged. You can have all kinds of reasons why you might have a vacancy, even in an area where there's 0. So I would still set aside for that. And if you bought a brand new build house, I would still set aside the 10% for repairs, maintenance, and CapEx, because you are saving for that roof in 30 years. You're saving for the HVAC that they put in yesterday that's probably going to break tomorrow. And some things are under warranty, but when you buy a house, it's really hard to get somebody to warranty anything. The warranty company's job is to find a reason why they don't need to cover the warranty, that item. So I would do that. For me, 15% works. If you have property management, set aside what they're going to charge as well. Maybe even pad that a little, because remember, at tenant turnover, you're going to have to cover the property manager is going to get 50% or 100% of that first month's rent in most cases. I would only work with a property manager who didn't charge for tenant turnover, because I want them to fear tenant turnover as much as I do. Second question, do you see yourself investing in long distance property? Only if I'm going to be there. So my school was looking at putting a campus in Arizona, and then we put one in Idaho. So I've looked in both places at the time we were putting the campuses to see if there was something I wanted to purchase. I don't want to invest at a distance because I self-manage. If I get to the point where I have property managers, I might. But to invest in an area, the main thing that matters to me, I actually have a live stream where the first was supposed to be 10 minutes, but probably 36 minutes, was how to choose a market. And the thing that mattered the most to me was tactical advantage. I want to live there and know the neighborhoods, or used to live there and know the neighborhoods, or have a friend who lives there who is such a friend that they're going to come to my funeral. That's the level of friendship I would want to have, because I want somebody that I trust who lives in the area, who knows the neighborhoods and who knows what's happening in the city. Because if you call random city, Duluth, Montana, or Millennial Mike invests in I think it's Indianapolis or Indiana. It's one of those I things in the middle where I went to school in America and they don't teach us geography, but it's one of those middle states. Agents and lenders, or whoever you're talking to in that area, are going to tell you about great deals that the local investors passed on for a reason. So I do have a friend who invests in Ohio. She found a property management company that also finds the properties for her to purchase so that they can property manage. So they don't want to go to certain neighborhoods. They know who to avoid. She did one purchase to see how it went, and now she has 3 properties there. So it can be done if you don't have boots on the ground, but that's the first thing I would want to develop. I don't see me doing that. Really, I have a video on my channel on how to house hack at a distance. I was going to buy, if I buy in Idaho, it's going to be a 4-plex where I rent out the other 3 units. I'm paid to live there. I'm still paid to live in the unit I have in Washington. So if I do invest at a distance, it's only going to be because I'm there, or someone I know that I trust is there. And I'm trying to think if I have any friends. I have no friends. Very sad. I don't think I have any friends in real estate in another market that I would trust to give me deals. Yeah. So I don't know that I will invest in long distance. Daryl, howdy. What are your thoughts on having a line of credit instead of a cash reserve? So the original host of the Real Estate Rookie podcast on BiggerPockets, so there's Ashley Kerr and Anthony or Tony now, but before that was Felipe Mejia. I remembered something. That's what he did. He kept lines of credit on his properties as a reserve. And it's a great idea when things are going great. But lines of credit, like they did last year, can just be canceled. Home equity lines of credit can be canceled. So the economic event that impacts you and makes you need to have that money could be the same economic event that triggers lenders canceling lines of credit. So I don't recommend. As your portfolio grows, I think lines of credit are great as a backup, but I would still have a reserve. And remember, lenders will look at 50% of a retirement account as a reserve without you having to tap it, touch it, or take it out. So you could just prove that it's there. You could do that too. A credit card, to me, is a more stable reserve than a line of credit, because I've seen lines of credit canceled. I have seen credit card limits reduced, but I have not seen them canceled. Yeah, so I don't know that that's a strategy I would support. Howdy. I have trouble getting my third loan. I need an advice on how to do my taxes. This is my first time. I'm going to do them 1 year investing. So if you own a rental property, I suggest having a tax professional focused on real estate. So CPA, tax pro, do your taxes. As soon as I found out that there were multiple forms of depreciation, I didn't even want to take the time to learn what they were or what they do or how they're categorized. I want a tax pro to do all of that the right way for me. So it's your first year, first time doing it. I would have a tax pro do it. That's my recommendation. The first 2 years of investing are the trickiest because you don't have rental income on your tax returns for lenders to look at the rental income of the property you're buying to give you those more loans. And in some ways, this is a good thing. The idea is the lender doesn't think you're a safe bet until you know the basics. Can you find a deal where the cash flow is actually positive? Can you advertise a property, manage a property, screen a tenant, place a tenant? Do you have the skills it's going to take to run a rental property? After 2 years of rental income on your tax returns, most of your lending issues go away. It's that track record of proving to the lender what you can do. So in those first 2 years, build your reserves, save your down payment, increase your options, continue to educate yourself. After having rental income on your tax returns for 2 years, I mean, you're still looking for good deals. You do have options like seller financing if it pops up. You might be able to do asset-based lending or non-QM loans where they base it on the income of the property. Your credit score still matters, but your debt-to-income ratio, your work history, and your income aren't as big a factor. But your loan options are going to be a little bit worse. Higher rate, worse fees, that kind of stuff. So there are options, but this is not get rich quick. This is a quote directly from Michael Zuber. It's get wealthy for sure. So think of a 10-year horizon instead of that 2-year window. Hope that helped. Jones, I will pay you my last dollar to tell me what happened with Swift and CRST. On a phone call that's not being recorded, sure. In a YouTube channel that's going to be up here forever, not so much. Email me. There you go. Chester, Industrial Revolution. Thank you. I hate my memory. Tom, nice. Okay. Jones O. Don't read this out loud. Yeah, I'm not going to read that out loud. Thanks. Then my chat moved. Of course, I lost it. There we go. Okay. Tony Since you're very successful with binder strategy, do you have any negotiating tips when asking for repairs or money when purchasing a property? Negotiating tips for repairs. So with repairs, show the contractors the quotes from other contractors to see who's willing to do what to beat the competition, or point out a flaw in the other's estimate. Like, did they leave out materials? Timeline to me is sometimes as important as price when it comes to contractors. Because remember, you can have good, fast, or cheap. 2 of those. You can't have all 3. You can pick 2. So when you show the quotes to each contractor, you're showing them what the competition is offering and what they got to do to beat it. Sometimes they'll just say, hey, that guy's got a better price. And so they can't beat it. When it comes to purchasing a property, my strongest negotiating tool is the inspection report. I've sent the inspection report to parts of the inspection report to the seller to say, these are the things I'm going to need to do. Here are your options. We can either have you fix all of these things before I take ownership, or you adjust the price by an estimate of what I think that would cost, or somewhere in the middle to negotiate with them. I have a video on my channel called Strongest Negotiating Tool where I kind of break down that. This is a people business. If you develop people skills, you'll be more successful because you're either going to manage your tenants or your property manager. Both of them need managed. And contractors, if they're going through your property management, you also have an upcharge where they're charging the management fee to get the contractor to do stuff. So the more you develop your people skills, the better at this. That's why people read the book that was talked about earlier of Never Split the Difference. That's a good one to figure out how to talk to people. So I suggest that. T. Stella. How does Section 8 deal with your binder method increases? Also, does this increase fall on the tenant or Section 8 or both? Thanks for doing this live. Thank you. So that's a good question. The Section 8 company in your county is more than likely a government agency called the Housing Authority. There's a chance it could be a nonprofit in your area. So check, is it a nonprofit that runs it their own way, or is it this government agency? A government employee can't go to their boss and say, we have a great relationship with this landlord. We should pay him more to keep the units. They have a chart of what they're willing to pay. Section 8 pays per bedroom. So it doesn't matter if you have a garage, a pool, a shed, a good view. None of that matters. What's a bedroom count? This is what we'll pay. So they have a chart. And generally, they go off of area average historical data, like Rentometer does. They look at the last year. These are the things that went for rent. So in normal years, they were pretty decent. But in 2020, 2021, when we saw 20 to 40% rent increases, and in my area, at tenant requests, we saw rent increases like that. So the other area average rents went up faster. Housing Authority fell behind by several $100,000. Several $100. Send an email to the Housing Authority, to the agent you're working with, and do the work for them. Here are the units for rent in the same area that have the same number of bedrooms, because that's all they're going to look at. They're not going to look at if it has other amenities. Just this many bedrooms is renting for this much. And in my area, there were a bunch for 24, 2450, 2500. And the Section 8 was telling me 1800 was the most they could pay for that number of bedrooms in this area. I sent them several examples in an email saying, here's the area average of this 24 to 25. I want to set the rent at 2200. So I did the work. Here's what I want to increase it to. $400 above what your limit is, which they've already emailed me what their limit was. Here's what the area average is. So they could take those numbers to their boss and say, here's what we need to do to keep this business, because they can get more if they drop the program. They came back and acquiesced. So that tenant is now at $2,200 a month in an area where for that many bedrooms, $1,800 is their cap. It can be totally different depending on what county you're in. An example, I invest in 2 counties. In Thurston County, Washington, I love the Housing Authority, and I can't wait to have more units listed with them. In Pierce County, Washington, F off. I wouldn't list a property with them, even if they paid more rent than where I'm at, because their communication is terrible. So find out how it works in the county that you're at to figure out what you want to do. There's my overshare for the day. Second one. Okay. Make sure I got that. So does the increase fall on the tenant or Section 8? So the increase falls on the tenant, right? The tenant is technically required to pay more. But the housing authority does an evaluation of what the rents are that they're going to be and what the tenant's income is. The 2 times I've had Section 8 rents increase, the tenant's portion went down because it was the first time they reevaluated that tenant's income in a year or two, and their income had stayed the same while rents went up. So their portion of a greater rent was actually a smaller percent. Not sure what math or metrics they used, but the tenant was super happy because they got a rent increase that took less money out of their pocket. So it can go either way. Housing authority can raise the tenant's amount. They'll do an evaluation. So if the tenant has had dependents move out or their income is somehow increased, it can impact them that way. So yes, both. Tom, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is an ideological and mindset book that Richard Kiyosaki sells. Dion Financial Talk is the how-to. There you go. Thank you. Tom Jones emailed and left phone number, but call when Dion is over. There you go. Roger Jones last CDL thing for the night from me. I used a permit test and got 100 on doubles and triples practice test. However, I went to the DMV and failed, got 5 wrong. Going back tomorrow. That book doesn't have all the answers, or did I miss something? It was about the dolly. I was like, what are you asking me? I've never seen or heard of that. So the questions, so the general knowledge questions, there's 300 on that they can ask. The computer randomly chooses 50. So you might get 50 you've seen before, 50 you've never heard of. The chapter questions tend to be a little bit easier. So read the questions at the end of the chapter, but then watch, because the DMV doesn't care what you know. They want to know you've looked at the book. So some stories are going to ask, some questions are going to ask you something that has basically 2 answers that kind of work. One of them is in the book and one of them is not. But look for the reverse. Instead of the book says it is safest to do this, the question will be, when is it not safe to do this? And they'll just add the not in the middle of the sentence. Hopefully you've used the CRST CDL. There's I don't have them memorized. If you email me, I'll send you all the apps that we use that we help to have the students help learn their for their written tests. And we are only coming up on 2 hours, and we don't have a lot of questions left. So everybody must know everything, and the students have become the master. So I might turn it around and ask you guys questions. Angel, hola, la cabrita, which means I'm a small female goat. I like it. Okay. Stella, how is cash flow considered tax-wise when you immediately put the cash flow into buying a new property investment? So cash flow is earned income, and it would be taxed at earned income. But since it's in the passive income column, the amount would go to your earned income for taxes, but since it's in the passive income column, you get to take out deductions and depreciation first. So it's not like a 1031 where you delay the tax obligation from the sale of a property and you take the capital gains from that property and put them in another one to delay having that obligation. It is taxable income, but in 10 years, I've never paid a penny of rental income tax because of depreciation and write-offs. So the order of operations for most people is you work, so your employer owes you money. So you've put the employer in your debt. When the employer goes to pay you, they take out money for the government first. They take out money for your retirement first. Then they give you what's left. So you earn the money, pay taxes, get the money. With rental properties, you earn the money, take out your deductions, take out your depreciation, and then pay taxes on what's left. And if you have principal, interest, taxes, insurance, write-offs, and depreciation, it's very likely that you have 0 tax obligation, even when you have 6 figures of profit. So I recycle cash flow. All the money from my W-2, which is cash flow, my company pays me money, that I get after taxes and all the stuff that they take out gets invested. From real estate, the money that comes in, I get to use depreciation and write-offs to have no tax obligation. And then that money is, some of it pays for my lifestyle, the rest of it goes into investing. I hope that helps. Corey, howdy. I just closed with a non-QM lender on a rental property, and they didn't care that I was in forbearance. Strategic decision on 3 other units. God bless non-QMs. Yeah, they're worried about what that property is going to do, and sometimes they will look and go, "What is your history? What is your credit score? Have you ever received rental income?" So they can ask you some questions because they have their own. Each non-QM lender kind of has their own metrics to go off of. But the property you're buying is the one that really matters. T-Still, we better ask more then. Mr. Banks, howdy. I need your email for the 10th time. Let's see if I can. There we go. I jumped your last question, Javier. I have trouble getting my 3rd loan. I must have missed one after that. I covered that one, unless I missed one before that. Maybe my memory's catchy, and you're forgetting me now. KHPF881. Howdy. It's like a cat walked across your keyboard. Dion, what documents do you use for your seller financing deals? Do you get these from your attorney, or these can be obtained online? So even if I do a seller financing deal, I'm going to use my agent. My agent has all the paperwork. He makes the offer. I hope my agent makes money. I'm not trying to save money on a commission because I want my agents happy so that they bring me deals in the future. This is a collective. So I haven't used an attorney. Seller financing, the offers get made by my agent. The paperwork could go through my agent. The twist is when you're doing seller financing, the seller usually doesn't want a big lump sum of money. It's one of the reasons why they're seller financing, because they're trying to avoid having to pay capital gains tax all in one year. But you don't also want them to write a check to sell their property. So my down payment in the offer, I spell out my down payment includes enough to cover the agent fees. So if I have an agent and they have an agent, that's going to be covered in my down payment, so that the seller gets the amount they're expecting to walk away from the closing table with, and the agent or agents make their money, and then the rest is worked out in the seller finance deal. Where was I at? Okay. Angel, my Spanish is really good. Where did you learn it? My first job was when I was 8. My dad and my oldest brother left. So my oldest brother was 17. My dad took him and they left. So all of a sudden, my mom, who was 45, who had never had a job in her life, she was a stay-at-home mom, didn't even have a license, right? She used to drive us on dirt roads to school. Got a job working in the onion fields. So in close to Tehachapi, California, out in Rosemond area. I went to work with my mom at 8, from 8 to 10, and worked in the onion fields. So most of the Spanish I know is how to cuss myself out and say, "Little white kid, you're not supposed to be here," and then I can beat myself up, because that's how I learned Spanish. Thought I spoke pretty decent Spanish until I traveled to Colombia, and then I realized I don't speak Spanish at all, because Spain Spanish, Mexican Spanish, Portuguese Spanish, depending on where you're at. So that was an education for me. Yeah, so there we go. Another overshare. Mr. Banks, I need your email. I put my email in there for you. Angel R, do you currently own any FHA loans? I have not used an FHA loan. My first low down payment loan for the duplex, I used a conventional loan with 5% down in a year when conventional loans would do that. Since 2015 till now, conventional loans for duplex, triplex, and fourplex will want 15% down, maybe even 20% down for owner occupied. So FHA is more attractive for small multifamily. I don't currently have an FHA loan. I prefer conventional because I like the idea of mortgage insurance dropping away without having to refinance. CJ, he answered it. Get a real estate friendly CPA. Thank you. Chenille. Were you able to learn more about DSCR loans, debt service coverage ratio, or asset-based lending? If so, do you recommend them? So I haven't done any work to learn those because I'm not going to be using them, and I don't want to give advice on something I don't plan on using. So I try to, like Michael Zuber says, stay in my lane. I'm not going to talk stocks. I'm going to debate crypto, but I'm not going to give advice on how to invest in crypto. I don't talk multifamily. I don't talk the burr. I don't talk flipping. So for DSCR, what I suggest is my email is in the chat. Reach out to me with an email, and I will connect you with my friend Alex, who actually does not, asset-based lending. He actually does that. He's got the information. And I've thought about it a couple of times. He's in a mastermind group with me, and I've reached out. So we've talked about doing a video where he comes on and gives his information. That would be my version of me doing the research because I don't plan on using those. So I don't want to give bad information. But I can have him come on. It's literally what he does every day. So reach out to me with an email, and I will connect you with Alex. And I do recommend them when it fits the situation. I've connected him with people where it made sense. You have bad debt to income, you have no work history, you have something that's a barrier to you getting into investing, but you have a source of income, you have money to invest. It is a route to go. So I do recommend them doing the research to find out why does it make more sense for you to do it that way, and why does conventional not make sense for the specific times it's a better choice. I recommend it. When conventional is a better choice, I would recommend conventional. Javier, use fair market rent for Section 8 rental. You think is good to use more than one website to estimate rent prices for Section 8. A couple of years ago, Section 8 was one of my sources for what area rents were. I would use Rentometer and Section 8. But those are two models that base their information on historical data. And in normal years, that tends to work okay. In years like 2020 and 2021, rents went up too fast for historical data to give us any kind of indicator of what was actually happening. So I actually go to apartments.com, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, and I look like I'm trying to rent a place with the same number of bedrooms in that area today for me to find area average rents. So if I was going to do it to set my rents, that's how I would do it. I have a video on my channel, how to set rents in a hot market. It spells out all the details on everything I'm covering now, but with more detail. And if I'm communicating with Section 8, I will do the work for them. Because they might go to Rentometer and they might go, hey, we're spot on. Right now, Rentometer is $500 less than what I'm getting at almost every single one of my places. And I'm below the area average. So it really depends on your county, the agency or nonprofit that runs it. And if you do the work for them, if you do the work and you found rentals where it looks like you're on the high end, you're just going to be working against yourself. But if you are looking at rents and you find out they are more than what you're charging, do the work for them. Put it into a format where it's easy for them to forward that to their boss to say, here's why we're changing the rents. Lance, howdy. Thoughts on building new duplexes versus buying a duplex in a market where duplexes are not on the markets? So if there's no duplexes on the markets, I would look for a house with an ADU before I moved on to building. In some years, it makes sense to build when prices go up too fast. But in a year where prices go up too fast because we don't have the supply, because supply chain issues cause wood prices to triple, labor issues cause prices to go up. So we're not building as much. The cost of building is enough to make it to where both are bad options in some cases. So we're looking at yield. How much would it cost to build versus how much would it cost to buy? What's going to rent for more? If there's no duplexes, I would really start to look for a house with an ADU, or if I purchased a house that I could add an ADU on, that might be easier than making a duplex. Also, your city matters. I buy a rental property, I'm getting a 10% cash on cash the year I buy it. If I buy a property to build and I work with a builder, it can be 3 years from now by the time you're getting permits where they're actually going to break ground. I who purchased a property, has a house on it, he lives on it on his RV. Goal, build duplex, ADU, tiny home. It's 3 acres, got it all planned out, paid over $7,000 for the plans to build the duplex. City came back and said, actually, we've changed our mind. You can't build a duplex here. You have to build an ADU. The tiny home's okay, but no duplex. $7,000 on plans that he couldn't use. Pandemic happens, prices go up, building doesn't make any sense. He goes into pause mode. The city came back and said, actually, we're wrong. You could build the duplex. So he's probably going to build the duplex, but he's still under the deal of waiting for lending to work on the builders who actually have the materials to build. And then things like Lumberjack Landlord talks about, windows are sometimes 60 days out. So I would look at house with ADU or house with build an ADU, so you at least have a source of income while it's happening. And a house with an ADU is sometimes a better option because a lot of investors forget to look for it because they're looking for small multifamily, and that's a single family house. And a lot of home buyers don't want it because they don't want tenants. So you tend to have a little bit less competition. Keith, do you have independent workers sign workman's comp waiver? My handyman signed a waiver. I think and hopefully they don't watch my content, but I don't think the waivers are worth anything. If they get injured on there, you're responsible. Have homeowners insurance, have an umbrella policy, have things in place to protect you from that. I don't let handyman or people who aren't licensed or insured for specific things like do stuff like on a roof. That's a roofing company who has specific insurance for being on a roof. In an electric panel, that's a certified electrician who has insurance in place for working in an electric panel. But replace a door or closet doors, that's a handyman. And homeowners insurance is good, but I still haven't signed the waiver. It kind of sets the tone that they're waiving you of responsibility, but those waivers would probably never stand up in court. So yes, but have all your other plans in place too. Jones sent the email. Thank you. Keith, gutter cleaning, carpet cleaning, house cleaning, and clean outs when a renter leaves. Right. Carpet cleaning, yes. House cleaning, same. Clean outs. I have a cleaning company that I can recommend here in Pearson, Thurston County that does tenant turnover cleanings for any of the investors that I know. Gutter cleaning, I would want the company that has insurance and literally go online to the state's website to make sure their insurance is current and that it's the type of insurance you want, anything to do with the roof, because it's very expensive. So what happens is a lot of roofing companies that are not good players will get general contractor insurance, which doesn't cover working on the roof, but it's a lot less expensive. So if you go to the website, it'll say general contractor insurance. Go and look up the roofing companies and look for the ones that have insurance that covers working on a roof. Same thing with gutter cleaning since it's elevated. Those are times I wouldn't cut corners or try to save money. I would support the people who are doing it right because that's protecting you. Jones, meaning I emailed you for study apps. Thank you. And the details on those who shall not be named. There you go. Million. Howdy, Million. What is the internet rate you see this week for house hack and investment properties? So interest rate you see for house hack and investment properties. I guess I'm about to find out. The last I talked to my lender was 4.8, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be around 5 point something for investment property. House hack is still going to be in the 4s for small multifamily because you have single family owner occupied lending is usually the best rate. Then you get a bump if it goes to small multifamily, and you get a bump if it's an investment property. So yeah, that's what I'm seeing currently. I think it can go up quickly, but compare rates it won't matter to me unless this offer is accepted I made an offer on a fourplex. If it gets accepted, then I'm going to take that lender's offer in writing to all my other lenders, let them all see what each is offering and give them all about 2 days to respond back with the rate that they can give me or the buy down rate that would keep my business. Tom, when it comes to the housing authority rental, do you do the lease or does the housing authority do the lease with the individual? You have a lease with a tenant. Housing authority is not on the lease. You have a written agreement with the housing authority stating this is what the housing authority will pay and this is what the tenant will pay. So every agreement on the lease is between you and the tenant. If the housing authority determines that that person no longer qualifies for housing, then the tenant is on the hook for the total amount of the lease. At least that's how it works in the 2 counties that I'm at. even though one county I would never add another Section 8 property to. Yeah, I think that answered the question. Does the housing authority do the lease? Yeah, so it's an agreement with the housing authority that's not a lease. The tenant has a lease with you. Lance, you're welcome. Lumberjack landlord, 118 days for your last window order. Geesh. T. Stella, do you wait and build a relationship first before you ask Section 8 for the increase, or was it before you leased it to them? You are knowledgeable. There hasn't been a question you couldn't answer. Well, somebody asked me for relationship advice, and I'll give you all kinds of answers that you don't want to hear. Let me see. Do you wait and build a relationship? Okay, so I purchased a property that had Section 8 in place. It didn't touch their rent till the next year. And my emails went to the housing authority before they went to the tenant. Yeah, so I don't think the binder strategy I've used with Section 8 was with existing tenants. So I had that tenant for over a year before I did the binder strategy with Section 8. Because normally I do a 5% increase every other year, and the housing authorities have never had a problem with that. It was in 2020 and 2021 where rents skyrocketed, where they said, well, you're above the cap. And I said, great, here's the actual area averages. So that was when I had to have the first conversation to use an email version of the binder strategy on Section 8. So there was not really, I mean, there was an existing relationship with me and the tenant. They had a lease. They had been there for a while. But the housing authority was where the communication started for the rent increase. Yep. And CJ, watch Dion's videos and you'll be set up for success. T, anything extra, you can hop in here and get any questions answered. Or you saw my email, T. I always will answer in emails. Sometimes I'll answer and go, hey, here's the video that covered that topic. And sometimes I'll get questions here or questions in an email where I think, oh, enough people have asked me that I need to either do a video or do the research so I can do a video. Kind of like the DSCR loans, which I have no experience with, but I know Alex, I've referred probably, I know it's over a dozen. So I want to say dozens of people to him with good outcomes. Sometimes it's what they went with. Sometimes he explained this is not the best product for you. So I want to have him on to do that video. And then questions like million. Did those 4 different lenders have to run your credit? Great question. First answer, I don't care. But here's why. When your credit is run, you get a hit on your credit score. It's probably going to drop 6 to 9 points, right? For 30 days, you have a window of opportunity to have creditors of the same like run your credit with no additional hit on your credit. So 100 creditors can run your credit, no additional hits. But here's how the order of operations has worked every time so far. Talk to the first lender, they run the credit, they do all the stuff, they verify a million pieces of paperwork, W-2s, K-1s, job, 2 paychecks, all the stuff in the very first time to get you qualified to tell you this is how much you can borrow. So like that's the big process. Once that's done, I've worked with that lender 2, 3, 4 years and they've never run my credit again until I have a property under contract. So once I get a property under contract, they run the credit to make sure everything is still good. But that's when I shop out on those other lenders. So none of them have ever run my credit. If they were just going, what did Wells Fargo offer you? Their interest rate, their buy-down rate, their fees in writing. They look at it and they go, so the reason I start with a large bank for the order of operations for lending is because their criteria is the most standardized. If you're qualified for Wells Fargo to get this loan for that amount at this interest rate, you're more than likely already qualified with the other lenders. If the other lenders look at that and they go, we can beat it, here's what our rate would be. They haven't checked my credit. They're just going, based on Wells Fargo's criteria, we would lend to you at this better rate or this better buy down rate that gets you the same percentage but costs you less to get there. Like there's a couple of reasons why you might choose someone else. It's not always interest rate. It could be rates and fees and terms. If they beat it, the first 3 mortgages I got, Wells Fargo beat everybody. Nobody could touch them. For some reason, they were just better. But around the 4th purchase and then 2 refinances and then some more purchases after that, Fairway Mortgage has been able to beat Wells Fargo. If they beat it without running my credit, I take their offer that beats Wells Fargo back to Wells Fargo, gave her a chance to keep my business. I said, here's what they're offering. And she went to her boss. They came back and they said, we can't beat it. So I went, the last 3 purchases and 2 refinances have been with Fairway Mortgage. Once I say, okay, I like your terms better than Wells Fargo, I am going to go with you, then they run the credit, right? So there's been 2 checks on my credit at this purchase. The first one took 6 to 9 points off my credit score. The second one was within a 30-day window. So I didn't care. They can run it as many times as they want. So yes, it's possible that they do, but do you care? No. Great question. Daniel Pitchler. Howdy. Dan, you have 150 days left before you retire. So everybody meet Dan. Dan is an employee of mine who started investing in 2018 and was on track to retire in probably, I want to say 10 years at the regular retirement age, but is retiring in 150 days, maybe 51. I haven't done the math. So that is awesome. Congratulations, Dan. I'm going to be counting down with you. You'll be missed at the company, but I think it's awesome that in 2018 you started investing in real estate and you have to where both you and your spouse can stop working, and was like August of this year or something. So congratulations. I'm glad we had every single Dion Talk we've ever had. Chester, is the buy down rate the same as buying discount points? Is that something you could also negotiate in case the two aren't the same thing? Yes, you can negotiate those. And that is what it is. You're basically paying part of the interest up front to get the rate down lower for the length of the loan. Makes sense for me because I buy and hold with the intent of having until the loan is paid off in 30 years, or I sell the property. I don't plan on refinancing. I don't plan on selling. So I plan on having my properties over 7 years, right? So I usually buy down the rate. If you're going to refinance or sell a property in the next 2 to 5 years, you might need to actually do the math on which way makes more sense. Sometimes it makes more sense to have the money now to invest than it does to buy down the rate. But that's basically what you're doing. You're paying points to buy down the rate. J-Rod, howdy. What do I do about someone who lies about smoking in a non-smoking unit? I usually put up an image of Dexter Morgan anytime that question comes up. They're already smoking in the unit. It's going to smell that way when they move out. It is a lease violation. You can do it, but you're going to have the same cleanup now as you do later, which is take out and replace all flooring, all blinds, scrub the walls with a mixture of vinegar, white vinegar usually, to scrub the walls, sacrifice a goat, paint, kills paint, then ceiling paint, all things on the window, screens have to be replaced, vents professionally cleaned, maybe rent a ozone machine. I mean, you're talking probably minimum $2,000 in addition to normal expenses when you swap out a smoker. Yeah, it sucks. It is a lease violation if it's in your lease, so you can take action. You're going to have to do the cleanup now. It does probably get worse after years of them living there. If there's any other tenant complaints from adjacent units, then I would probably get rid of the tenant. Send an actual letter, written letter, not just an email, but a written letter to the house saying this is all the stuff, if you're smoking in the unit, not only will your deposit be held, but any cost incurred with all the expenses, and list out everything I just said. You gotta rent the ozone machine. You gotta professionally clean the things. You gotta replace the screens. You gotta buy a goat to sacrifice. You have to paint. You have to kills paint. You have to do all these things. List them all out. These are things you will be responsible for if you continue to smoke in the unit. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Jimena, hola mija, ¿cómo está? Diga la verdad. That's true. T. Stella. CJ, thanks. I plan on it. I found him on BiggerPockets, and I'm watching everything I can, including his amazing podcast. Thank you. My goal was to get this information out. I usually like to do 10-minute videos. Live streams tend to go 3 hours, which I'm super happy for. I can't believe people want to hang out with me for 3 hours. I'm just trying to take everything that's in here and put it in there. So these questions really help. It helps me know what videos to make. It helps me know what I need to research. It helps me know what experts to get on. What I really like about One Rental at a Time is he made a course and he invests one rental at a time, and he's done multifamily and single family and small multifamily, but he's never self-managed. He's never house hacked. He's done a few other things where he has people like me and the lumberjack landlord come in and create content for those things he hasn't done. That's what I want to do. That's why I want to have Alex come on and talk DSCR loans. I do the Three Amigos every Thursday. We record 3 videos for Michael Zuber's channel, and then we do 1 video for mine that usually comes out on the weekends, where you have 3 very different approaches. Michael Zuber has a master's degree in economics. Matt dropped out in the 9th grade. I graduated high school with a 1.0 GPA, just enough to get in the Marine Corps. All 3 of us have reached financial freedom with different paths. We did it one rental at a time, but they've recycled capital. I've recycled cash flow. They're building massive portfolios with large numbers. I reached financial freedom, which we've all 3 done, but that was my goal. I just wanted to make work optional. So that kind of content, I think, gives everybody something they can relate to. I really just hope it helps. Angel R. What would you do? I need to do roof on a duplex. My brother-in-law is not insured, but inexperienced. No. Brother-in-law, no. Not insured, no. Finish the rest of the question, sorry. He is an experienced roofer. If I do it with him, it will be $14,000. If I do it with a professional company, it will be $17,000. How would you feel paying all of your brother-in-law's expenses for the next 2 years while his back heals, or his ankle heals, or something simple? Or if the roof fails, does he have the $14,000 to replace the roof if the materials didn't work right? Wow, I wouldn't even do it if it was free with him, $17,000 with a roofer, and you're thinking at it 14 versus 17. There are a lot of things you can do to help support your brother-in-law, but putting your property at risk is not the step I would take. Call and get a lot of quotes. I've had quotes from $7,000 to $32,000 on doing the roof on my single-family house, and quotes from $15,000 to $24,000 for doing the roof on my 4-plex. I didn't always go with the cheapest. Sometimes I went with the one that made me the most comfortable. I definitely didn't go with the most expensive, but I always went with the one who was licensed and had roofing license insurance for his crew. Because your homeowner's insurance might not pay a claim if you had foreknowledge that the person doing something dangerous on your property wasn't licensed. So, yeah, that's a big risk I wouldn't take. Good question. I mean, you're thinking the right way. How can I do this and not spend money if I don't have to? But insurance is expensive, so I would pay the company that was including the expense of insurance. RAI Stoners, howdy. Hopefully it's going well for you guys here in Washington. Thanks for keeping us focused on the baby steps. Landed a great paying 40-hour plus job today. Awesome. Next step, lender says to hold this job for 6 months. Having a great ride. Awesome. Million, thank you. You earned the thumbs up. Thank you. If I have earned your thumbs up, I appreciate it. Never hit the thumbs up if you don't like my content. Only hit it if you think I've earned it. If you really hate this content, hit the dislike button twice so I really know you didn't like it. Angel. Shellac bin paint to remove smoke, smell, calculate at least 3,000 in renovations to get it back to normal. Yep. Jimena, Dion, it might sound silly, but do you ever get emotionally attached to your properties and have a really difficult time when tenants don't take good care of them? No. I see the expense. If I have a tenant who smokes in the unit, I know there's an expense. If I see, I'm okay with pets. Never had pet problems. But when I see little kids, I'm like, that place. I have a tenant. All 3 interior doors have holes punched through them with tape over them. I've offered to replace them. And she said, no. They'll just break those. When I move out, take it out of the deposit. So I know there's going to be that expense there. I don't emotionally care. I am super petty and I kept a house through the divorce, which I probably should sell. It makes more money financially to sell and then put that money into a small multifamily. It's the only single family house I have. But keeping it through the divorce somehow, and my kids growing up there for a while, I'm attached to it. So there's some emotional component to this. But not that the tenants aren't taking care of it, because before I was an investor, I had the same concerns most newer investors do. What if someone doesn't pay the rent? What if someone trashes my place? And so not paying the rent, have reserves, diversify your properties, diversify your tenant base, diversify all of that kind of stuff. But my brother told me, somebody is going to trash your place. Just expect it. It's money. Money comes from gross rents and gets set aside into this account for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy for in the future. So you might have to replace all the drywall and all the doors and all the flooring and do all the smoke cleanup or whatever. That's part of doing business. Expect it. And when it doesn't happen, when a tenant moves out and the place is immaculate, you're shocked. That was more shocking to me than finding a place that would be trashed. So no, not yet. Javier, thanks, Dion, for answering all the questions. Thank you. Jones, so agreed. Thank you for your time as always. Thank you. We're still good. We've got time left. Hopefully questions keep popping up. Murph Dog. Howdy. Do you charge more for smokers, pets, etc., to cover future expenses? I allow pets in all of my units. It's kind of a tactic to increase the demand for my units because a lot of places don't like pets. I've never had a problem with pet damage, and if you do, if they just totally tore up your floor, I'm going to replace most flooring anyways. If they totally tore up a door, I'm going to replace the door. Those aren't big expenses. So I charge a $250 pet fee. You can't call it a non-refundable deposit. By definition, a deposit is refundable, but you can have a pet fee. So that's not refundable. Then they do $25 a month for pets across the board. If you have a tenant, and this alleviates this too. If you say no pets and somebody shows up and says, I have a support animal, each area has different laws on this, and there's certain animals that are licensed to do specific things, and you can't discriminate. And so you really can't even charge for that. So if I ever had a tenant show up with one pet that said I have a service animal, I probably wouldn't charge the pet fees. But the one time I had somebody show up with a service animal and the thing, they had multiple pets. So pet fees existed anyways. And I don't charge per pet. I just charge for having pets for future things. I haven't charged for smokers, but I do have in the leases there can't be any smoking inside the buildings. So if I ever found out one was smoking inside the buildings, then I would do all the stuff we just talked about a minute ago on sending a letter saying this is the fees you're going to pay. I don't have an extra charge for smokers in the thing. I do have to say, if I had the option, if I met two people who were equally qualified and one smoked and one didn't, I would take the one who didn't, because most smokers who say we don't smoke inside, smoke inside. Or they smoke at the edge of the window and they breathe outside, which makes the whole house smell because the window's where the air comes from. So, yeah. Chester, Jimena, once it gets down to cold, hard numbers after reviewing hundreds and hundreds of properties, emotion eventually goes out the calculation, pretty much. Daniel, 149 days thanks to passive income and what you teach. Looking forward to it. So we will be needing a fleet manager in 100 days to give us some training time. REI Stoners. I'm noticing that telling everyone around me that I'm getting into real estate and have read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I'm getting a lot of feedback. The guy who interviewed me today said he has 4 rentals. Golden number. Nice. Yeah. Letting everybody know what you do is really important. I had the deal deep dive last week that came out with Joe, where just because he was telling everybody what he does, he picked up a flip where he's making $40,000 in profit and had to put $160 down basically to lock in the deal because everybody knows what he's doing. Chester. Daniel, how many rentals do you have? I think you're up to 9 units, Dan. I think Dan primarily invests in small multifamily or houses with ADUs or a blended property with several units on it. And only been investing since 2018. So it doesn't take a lot of units. I reached financial independence with 7 units. Financial freedom, I think I'm still working on. I don't know that I can buy anything I want without looking at the price tag. I can buy a Lamborghini, but probably not 5 of different colors. I'm not in the lumberjack world yet, but working on it. Yeah. Cool. So we're at the 2.5-hour mark. We still have 53 people hanging out with us. This is your ask me anything time. What would What would you ask if we were in the same room together? What question would you want to know from somebody who 10 years ago uh, couldn't afford to eat in most of the restaurants that I go to now on a regular basis? Um, this is your opportunity. So let me see if I can. Yep, make work optional in 4 years. Uh, it was impressive. Part of it was, I think, reallocating retirement accounts too, and recycling cash flow, and being pretty frugal for those 4 years too. Placing vision boards around the house is the next step. Yep, I think I have a video coming out Thursday on the vision book, on how I use this to motivate myself and to basically store all of the information on my business, which I've talked about once before in a live stream, but I'm going to do an actual video on it. Which, because this video is about passive streams, or not passive, but streams of income. Affiliate marketing is a stream of income. So when I put that book up, I'll probably share how much money I make in the next week off of affiliate marketing, because I don't think many people are going to click on the book and buy the book. But when you click on an affiliate link for 24 hours, anything you buy on Amazon, the person who sent you there with that link gets an affiliate market charge, which doesn't cost you anything. They just send them some money. Angel R, thank you. You're traumatized not having the right insurance can cost us thousands. Yesterday, someone crashed into your car. It was a hit and run, and I was able to get his plate. My brother-in-law will probably be upset I don't do it with him, but it is what it is. Thank you for your solid advice. I think maybe he would understand that if he wants to go and if he went and got insurance for this one job and he had to pay $3,000 for it, and now your cost was $17,000, but he had insurance, now you're comparing apples to apples. So maybe there's a way to do it. Your cost would still be $17,000, but now the money is going to him instead of the roofing company. My family had tree services. My dad had tree services. My brothers had tree services. And my dad always told me that you can tell who your friends are, because your friends use your business, but your friends don't ask for a discount. That's a good judge. I have a friend who's a real estate agent. I mean, he just happens to be really good at it. So since he's a friend, he's the agent I go to. He's the agent I had to make this offer on this last property. I have my auto searches set up with him. I have auto searches set up with other agents, but he's the one I've been working with. I would be insulted if he asked for extra money, and he should be insulted if I asked him to reduce his rate. Friends use your business, but don't ask for a discount. So maybe you can use your brother-in-law, but have him get insurance. Don't know that that's even possible, but that's an idea. Karen, howdy, took a message back to make me lose sleep and make me wonder what that was. Chester, how many rentals would you consider are necessary for financial independence, and how many would you consider are necessary for financial freedom? I wouldn't put a number on the number of properties or units. Cash flow determines, so you have to find out what your freedom number is. How much money have you been spending in the last 6 months to live your current lifestyle? So you have the data on that already. You don't have to project or guess. You can look at what you've been doing. If you have enough profit after principal, interest, taxes, insurance, setting aside for vacancy, maintenance, and repairs, after all that, if there was enough coming in from your rentals to cover those expenses, then you're financially independent. Financial freedom really comes down to what you consider the life you want to live. I don't think I need 5 Lamborghinis, one of each different color. But if I could afford them, that would be financial freedom. I took a month in Colombia, and then I took a month in Thailand. I took a month to travel all over the country. It'd be kind of fun to go to the Florida Keys and spend a month there and rent Sea-Doos every day and go and play in the water. But when you look at Airbnb for Florida, they're like $10,000 a month for an Airbnb there. Plus, you're going to eat while you're there. Plus, you're going to fly there and back. Plus, you're going to rent the Sea-Doos or the snorkel or the scuba gear or whatever you're going to do, right? I can afford that, but the price tag tells me that's not a smart use of my money. Financial freedom happens when you have so much cash flow coming in that $10,000 for an Airbnb Who cares? You don't even think about it. You just go, we want to fly to the Keys because it's the quickest way there. We don't have a long drive to get there. We want to be right on the water. We want a good view. We want the Sea-Doo thing within walking distance. And we just go and do it for a month. And don't even worry about the money. I'm not there yet. So it's not a number of properties or a number of units. Cash flow reaches financial independence. And then what you think of a life without price tags would be financial freedom. Jones. Okay. Sean can shine. Howdy. Will you make a video soon about starting a nonprofit, tax benefits, etc.? Probably not. My nonprofit doesn't actually process any funds. It's a 501c3, which means we're allowed to provide the services and we can't charge. It's actually what opens doors for us. So there's really no tax benefits because it has no income. The benefit is tertiary. The CDL school gets the benefit from the work the nonprofit does. I make a lot of videos on the benefits of running a real estate portfolio. 6 figures of profit, not 1 penny in rental income tax. Those are the videos I think that this channel exists for. I didn't make the nonprofit for any tax benefits because there are none. If the nonprofit takes in money, then the nonprofit reinvests any of the profits back into the business. It's still going to pay taxes. You might get some tax benefits out of it, depending on the business structure you're going to have. But if you're paying wages to someone in that nonprofit, you're going to pay wage taxes. You've got all the regular tax problems. With real estate, you get depreciation and write-offs. The tax benefits in real estate are one of the top 4 reasons why it's the asset class I chose to invest in. So more of my videos are about that than they would be about the nonprofit. Kind of like I probably need to make a channel dedicated to CDL talk. I don't mind answering questions, Jones, here, because you just got your CDL. I get you're totally excited. But most of those questions, let's hook up with an email, or if I make a YouTube channel on the CDL school, then that's the place for that. Because I think a W-2 is important. And like you said, working a job, holding it for so many months to have that income so you can qualify for loans. It's one of the streams of income that gets us to the other streams of income. Yeah. Julie, what have you taught your children about investing and real estate? Horrible, terrible advice. Because when my kids were younger, I was one of those people that thought and literally said, I'm probably just going to work until I die. That's what I expected. The Marine Corps pension wasn't an option. The law enforcement pension wasn't an option because both those went away. I had a CDL. There are companies like Oak Harbor Freight Lines that have a pension, but the company went on strike, so that's not even a guarantee. I had a pretty negative mindset when it came to money. So when my kids were young and actually impressionable, they probably have all the same money hangups that I did. Super frugality, scarcity mindset. A mental trick I've pulled is my son, who went to college, got some college debt. My gift to him when he graduated was a CDL so he can actually get a job to pay off his student loans because the degree didn't help. He started about a little over a year ago with $54,000 in debt, student loans and some credit cards and that kind of stuff. If I went to him and said, you can make work optional, you can kill this bad debt, this is how good debt works, he would have blanked out and toned out and stopped listening. Because what can dad possibly know? But learn the way your kids communicate. Some kids communicate audibly. Some are visually. Some want to go on a hike and talk while you're hiking. Some want to talk while you're driving in the car. Some have a really short attention span and like to watch 10-minute or less videos on YouTube. So you make a YouTube channel. And then you flash forward a year to where, about a year ago, my son had killed his debt. So no more bad debt. Him and his wife are saving for their first duplex. It's like the life hack where I pulled off a trick to get him on board with real estate. My daughter's not so much. Someday they might come to me, but I'm kind of the parent who, I ran a martial arts studio. I taught defensive tactics for years. I never forced martial arts on my kids. They were in gymnastics and wrestling and whatever got them in their interest. So if investing or real estate becomes interesting to them, I'm here to share the information, but I'm not going to try to force this on them. because I think it's counterproductive. So bad, horrible advice. I probably gave them really bad relationship advice too. Go with your strengths. Ryan, howdy. What are your thoughts on investment properties near college and universities as student rentals? It's a little more managed intensive, especially if you're going to go buy the room. And you're going to probably be more profitable. I have a friend that lives up near Bellingham in Washington. He invests primarily around colleges. Even during 2020, during the pandemic, he did well. Colleges were shut down. They weren't training in person, but a lot of his tenants still lived at the houses because they were wanting the college experience. They wanted to be out from their house with their parents. So even in a really bad time when I thought college, tenancy would be low, he didn't suffer. I think it's a good idea, but it's kind of like the real estate X factor. You have the more risk you're willing to take, the more money you're going to make. And the more work you're willing to do, the more money you're going to make. So at the top up here, you have self-managing short-term rentals. And somewhere in there would be self-managing college rentals. Right below that would be property management for short-term rentals or college rentals, then followed by self-managing long-term rentals, followed by property management for long-term rentals. So the less work you do, the less money you're going to make. And the less risk you take, the less you're going to make. So it's a little more risky to be dependent on one source of tenants, the college. Would the property make sense as a rental if the college didn't work? If something changed with the HOA, municipality, or law structure there where you couldn't rent by the room? For instance, some places only allow 3 unrelated people to live in a building together. So you can all of a sudden, if that municipality enacts that law, you can't rent by the room to more than 3 different people. If the property would make sense as a rental and make something and then benefit a lot from the college or short-term rental or Airbnb or whatever, take the risk and do it, sure. But I wouldn't buy one that was going to lose money if it was a long-term rental and need it to be college or short-term rental for it to make sense. Hope that helped. Karen, howdy. Hi, Dion. Are you still on the search for a great deal in this current environment? I made an offer last night. I'm waiting to hear back. They might have sent back an answer. Nope, no answer yet. So I'm still finding deals. I'm still making offers. I'm not emotionally attached. If I get the offer, the numbers made sense because I made the offer. If I don't care. Somebody else wanted to pay. It made more sense to them at a higher number. So still, price is only one factor. We have price, rates, rents. Rents are skyrocketing. Rates are going up, but rates are still lower than they were in 2018 when I was buying duplexes. I was paying 5.5 or 6% for loans. So I refinanced 2 of them when the first rates really dropped. I refinanced 2 to like 3.1% or something like that. It's always a good day to buy a great deal. I'll probably butcher this because I'm not a stock investor, but there's a thing called dollar cost averaging. You take your money for stocks and you invest the same amount consistently as you go. So when stock prices are going up, you're buying less, but at the same amount. When stock prices drop, you're buying more, but at the same amount. Over a long enough history, that has tracked to be one of the most productive investing strategies. I don't invest in stocks, so I probably butchered that. But that's how I look at real estate. As I'm saving, I'm looking for deals that would cash flow. When I find them, I make offers. As prices go up, rents are also a factor. And we are seeing record wage inflation, so we're seeing rents go up. So I'm tracking that might work too. When prices continue and rates continue, we'll see what happens with rent. I might change asset classes. I might change locations. There's a whole bunch of factors on where and when to invest. But doing the work every day, I feel confident that I'm watching what things are changing that I need to use in my decision. And I made it another hour before I needed a drink. Make sure my sound is on. Okay. Where was I at? Was it Karen? Ryan Loftus, would you consider the college to be an economic driver, although most likely a yearly turnover as the students come up and go? Yes. So, but you're renting by the room, so the turnover is not as extensive as when you have a whole property flip. And the college is an economic driver. The problem with renting by the room is it's a massive economic driver. If that goes away, there's not usually a lot of replacement sources of tenants, maybe traveling nurses if there's a hospital there. I have friends who do Airbnb that rent to what are they called? Linemen, the traveling linemen, the storm chasers. So it just depends on what other economic drivers there are. So if it makes sense as a long-term rental, that's where base, port, Boeing, Amazon, your large economic drivers come into play. The college and the hospital are your kind of by the room or traveling nurses, short-term rental type stuff. And do expect more turnover, but expect it to cost less. More management intensive, but less expensive than turning a whole house. Chester, what are all the expenses you list out on your spreadsheet? I believe I remember you said you only have 2 workbooks for your businesses, one for income and one for expenses. That is true. So all of the expenses are in there, though. The tab for income and the tab for expenses. So income is things like rents. There's a few properties where I have to pay the water bill, so the tenants have a water bill worked into their lease. So I collect the water rents. There's a business that pays me for access to the well because there's some kind of an agreement between my property and a commercial building. So that's income. But the expenses side, it's columns that list out, and so from here to be right to left, the date, the place the expense was made, Lowe's, Home Depot, Floor Trader, massage therapy, whatever the expense was, the amount, the tax amount, the business or property that it's assigned to. So if it's a YouTube expense because I buy a microphone, that's a YouTube expense. If it goes to a rental property, I list it out there, and then there's a note section that says what the expense is, because the CPA determines if it's something that can be depreciated. Is it amortized depreciation? Is it part of scheduled depreciation? Is it all of those things they make with the note section? So I'd keep it pretty simple. So it's not so much that I have this column is where repairs go, and this column is where maintenance goes, and this column is where vacancy expense goes. It's just all of the expenses so that I can click on the top of the spreadsheet and go, in these months, what were my expenses? For each property, what were the expenses? It is kindergarten simple. You can make this as complicated as you want or as simple as you want, and I go with kindergarten simple. So anytime somebody emails me and I send them a copy of my spreadsheet, I literally say, this is kindergarten version. Feel free to add what you think matters. It's what works for my CPA and me. Yeah. Young 412. Howdy. What would be a reasonable cost to remove a tree? It depends on the tree, the danger factor. Is it above electric lines? Is it above something that can be damaged easily? How vertical is it? Are there rotten spots? The correct answer is the best estimate out of at least 3 free estimates from arborists. That's the best price to remove a tree. So there's a lot to factor. I used to do estimating. I'd come home from the Marines on the weekends and do estimating for the family. And so there's a lot that goes into estimating the cost to a tree. And really, until you have enough estimates from different arborists, there's no way to know what it should cost. Some can be fallen. Some are taken down in pieces. Yeah. Keith. Time in the market is a key to financial freedom. Absolutely. Yep. You will have that alligator, but you will learn more from it that will help you in the future. Learn from your mistakes. Agreed. Million. Prices are getting hotter here. Same thing here too. I'm looking at more deals to find ones that make sense. Pay attention to rents. Trying to think of what else. Look at different asset classes. Consider seller financing. I think Matt, the lumberjack landlord, and Michael Zuber are spot on with the distressed seller could start showing up. So be ready. Keep saving money, increasing what you can purchase, increasing, do the work every day so that you're aware when that deal pops up. Because the thing that really sucks about an investor is hearing about a deal that was done last week that we would have loved to do. but you just weren't looking last week. Michael North. Howdy. How old were your children when you started your journey? So I made it to 40 before ever having $1,000 in the bank and starting the house hack or even save for the first house hack. 8, 13, there's 5 years, so 8, 13, 19, 20, 19, 8, 13, 19, something like that. So 2 were young, and my son was just heading off to college when I started to take charge of my finances. And a lot of people think, oh, I can't house hack because I have kids. Well, the generational wealth that was created means the kids were part of the motivation to do all of this. But the second thing is I went to my youngest daughter and I said, hey, I'm thinking about moving from our house where you have all of your friends and you've been going to the same school, but I want to move to this apartment. It does a couple things. Eliminates a commute for me, but I couldn't explain to her, it lets us get rental income on our tax return so that we can buy a property in 2 years. Like, that's not a concept I would share with an 8-year-old, but I was like, I'm thinking about moving to an apartment. She got super excited. She was like, I get to be the new girl? And that was all she thought. I get to go to a new school and be the new girl. So some people might be thinking that their kids aren't resilient and can't handle shifting schools when it was actually a goal of hers. Had we not had the conversation, I might not have ever done it because I was thinking, oh, I can't disrupt my kids' lives. So they've thanked me several times for moving, because when we moved to an apartment complex, we're talking house, which was nice. It was a 4-bedroom house on a lake with private boat launch and basketball court, tennis court, all that kind of stuff. So it was nice, right? But we moved into an apartment complex, which meant pool, hot tub, weight room, tons of families with kids that they could play with, and a new school to go to. Yeah. So have that conversation before you just disregard house hacking as an option. And where was I at? Yep. Okay, Con. Can you explain how you introduce yourself to new tenants after acquiring a rental with tenants? So generally, I like to be present during the inspection. So during the inspection, I will introduce myself to the tenants as I'm possibly the new owner. We're in negotiations so that they know that it's not a done deal, because you don't want to say anything that's concrete, because a closing isn't concrete until it's recorded. A lot of things can change. So I say I'm possibly going to buy the place. I usually ask questions. This is the one question I like to ask that I've had my agent tell me not to. Not the one I'm working with now, but my first agent. He told me never do this. I like to ask the tenant, hey, I'm looking at buying this place. I'm curious, you live here. If you owned this place tomorrow, like poof, you're the owner, what's the first thing you would change or fix? My first agent said, don't do that. That's stupid. They might ask you to do something like add a bedroom or pave the driveway or just something ridiculous, right? That's never happened. The tenants have gone and put some thought into it. One was like, that fan doesn't work. Another one wanted a screen door. A couple of really small things like $100. And now the tenant thinks, I'm curious about how to make it better. I'm going to pay attention. I listen and I take action. So 2 months later, when I have the binder strategy, it goes much better because they know I'm the owner that's going to take care of the place. So that's the inspection period when I walk through the walkthrough. Sometimes I meet them, sometimes they're not there. At closing, I will hand deliver or mail if it's too far away. Mine, I always invest within an hour of here. And I've been out of country on closing before. So either I'm out of country or my agent is out of country. We just take turns. So I'll email if I have email contact, or I'll mail a letter. And just Google landlord introduction letter. There's several versions on there. It just says who you are, the new property, how to contact you. I put in very specifically, please do not pay the previous owner or previous property management company the rent for next month because I'm the new owner. Here's how I like to collect rents. Simply put that in there with contact information. If you can hand deliver it, I also like to have the conversation of, here are 3 words that you can use to know if it needs you to call me. These are the 3 words that tell you to call me. So I'm like anchoring these thoughts to, this is when you make a phone call. Fire, flood, or blood. If those 3 words are used in a sentence, you can call me. If it isn't that, you can text me. And if they text me, because I prefer to do all communication through text, if they do text me and it's something important that I determine is important, I shift it to email, because in my state, emails are admissible in court, texts are not. So that is how I introduce myself to tenants. Hopefully that answered the question. Yeah. I did a live stream a couple of weeks ago, buying a rental before, during, and after, and I really broke down that. And my brother, the investor, is calling me. I should put him on speakerphone and just see what random. No, I can't do that. How to demonetize your YouTube channel. Let's see. Where was I at? Okay. J Rod. So thanks, Con. That was a good question. J Rod, I'm my dad's daughter. I'm in my first year of college. Should I continue or go into real estate? So those are two separate questions. Should I go into real estate? Do you mean as a real estate agent or as a real estate investor? Because most agents never invest. The work is relatively inconsistent. The money is nice, but you generally don't show lendability. Should you continue with college? Should come down to why did you start college in the first place? Is this a college degree that's going to lead to more income? I would suggest if it's what you want to do and the degree leads to more income, of course, pursue that. If you're looking at college because it's fun and you want the college experience, maybe postpone that in life till you have the resources to pay for it so you don't create college debt, which is the worst kind of debt because it's the only debt that can't be forgiven. Forgiven's the wrong term. It can't even be bankruptcy. Like it just can't be. There's another word I'm missing, but it can't go away. So if the college degree equals more money in a field you want to work in, yes. If you want to become a real estate investor, W-2 income is going to be what helps with that. So I can't give you life advice on the college thing. I can tell you that being a real estate agent, I have a list of reasons. I have a video on my channel as to why I'm not a real estate agent. As an investor, I do not want to be an agent. There is not enough benefit for me to say I'm going to save commission to do my own deals, which means if I only do my own deals, I would be a real estate agent who's only ever had one customer. Would you work with an agent who's only ever had one customer? So that's not the 10,000 hours to master an ability that I want in the agents that I'm eventually going to work with. Licensing fees, MLS access fees, if you join a brokerage, the fees, the savings are just not there. Access to the MLS is nuanced. So even if I was an agent with full access to the MLS, I would still have at least 3 agents with auto searches set up, because in 10 years, with at least 3 agents always with auto searches set up, one time has agents ever sent me the same deal within 24 hours. Somehow they search differently. If a property sits on the MLS for 15 days, which in my market just doesn't happen, they have sent me those same deals, but within 24 hours, once in 10 years. So even with access, I would still want access. The college thing is separate from real estate. It is going to benefit you financially. That's how I look at college. I don't look at college as it makes you a more well-rounded individual. I work with, so my nonprofit does job placement with over 1,200 employers. I have hundreds of employers who absolutely refuse to hire anybody with a college degree, unless it's a degree for accounting or something that's related to the field. But if you have a degree and they're looking for somebody to work in IT or somebody to work in the warehouse in logistics or operations, and they see a degree, they think that person spent 4 years in that field and wants to do that work. Why would I put them to work in my company? My company doesn't even do whatever that degree is. So hopefully that helped. Your situation is unique. But I don't know enough details to actually tell you to continue or not continue with college. Hope that helps. But I'm my dad's daughter. Does that mean you're on your dad's account? That's cool. Nice. Murph Dog. Do banks frown upon someone moving from, say, a 3-bedroom tap into a duplex? I'm planning to rent my 3-2 at the end of this year. We just refinanced and hopefully start my journey with duplex hacking. So the lumberjack landlord often talks about the 4-3-2-1 strategy, which is brilliant because some lenders with FHA or VA, so owner occupied, but where there's special deals, will want you to be working towards a single family or towards a larger single family. So if you're in a 3-2 and you're moving into a duplex, if it has less bedrooms, some lenders might have a problem with that. Is it closer to work? Is there a feud with a neighbor near your house that you don't want to deal with on a daily basis? but moving there, is it in a better school district? Is there something justifiable that you can use in a letter of explanation to the lender saying, here's why this property makes more sense to us? I haven't used FHA or my VA loan, so I haven't had that problem. With conventional, they generally don't care. If you're going bigger, smaller, small multi, it doesn't matter. It's just FHA that can sometimes be a problem. But all lenders are not made the same. Shop around lenders till you find one that doesn't care. And have your story. But I think it's great to go from a house to a duplex. I mean, that's what I did. So it was what I was hoping to do. Yeah. Julie, how do you get loans if you show no profit in your real estate? So depreciation is taken out of the equation when a lender is looking at your income. So if you make $100,000, so I made more than that, but so let's say you made $100,000 to pick a nice round number, and you have $30,000 worth of write-offs and $100,000 worth of depreciation. So you can actually carry a loss forward. They take the $100,000 out. Now it looks like you have $70,000 in profit. So lenders will remove depreciation from your lendability equation. That's how you continue to get loans while having a no tax obligation. Great question. Tripped me up a couple times too. I was thinking, wow, it looks like I'm losing money. Who's going to lend me money? And the lender's like, no. Your write-offs are nowhere near the amount of your rents. That's what we're looking at. You are making money. So good question. Jones, question. Is it really as simple as you make it seem? This is not. Well, it is as simple as I make it seem. It is not easy. Nothing is easy about saving 2 years in an apartment while you have a house on a lake you could be living in, to save a down payment, to move into a duplex from your apartment, to live into a duplex, to move into a place where you have neighbors in the next unit while you have a house you could be renting in. It's not easy to think, my house is making profit. I've reduced my housing expense by living in the duplex and renting out the other side. I've been doing this now for over 2 years. I need a reward, which was like the lumberjack landlord said, getting a value meal instead of going to the dollar menu. Like that's the reward, not I'm going to get a Corvette. That's year 6, not year 2, right? So easy? No. Simple? Kinda. Learn area average, takes 60 to 90 days, save up a down payment, buy a rental property that will get you the yield you're looking for. I mean, it's conceptually, it's not really challenging. It's just not easy. It's frustrating. Rent rates go up, prices go up. We all have the same emotional response of, I can't find a deal. Looking every day, I'm like, holy crap, there's a deal, make an offer. Right. Yeah. So I don't know if it's as simple as I make it seem. I do try to break things down. My W-2 job is teaching people how to put 105,500 pounds of hazmat on the road and drive down it with confidence, right? So I can break things down into simple components, and that's what I'm doing with real estate. It does take a lot of self-education to have your best chance of success. And there is a lot of misinformation out there. Things that people do that make this way more complicated than it needs to be, or things that make it glamorous so people take risks they shouldn't when they're first starting. Look how much hype the Burr method gets. I've been investing 10 years. I'm just about ready to do my first Burr and have a good chance of success. In the first 10 years, when you don't have the cash flow to support your mistakes, really don't understand after repair value, you don't understand the timeline of a rehab, which I still haven't even done a rehab yet, cost of a rehab, all of those factors that we can mess up when we're first starting. There's information out there that makes that look easy. You just buy a wedge deal. You just buy a deal that's below area, it's below market. That makes it sound too easy, too simple. Hopefully that answered that question. Antonio Barajas, hola, howdy. Hey Dion, howdy. How much can you save if you do your own escrow? Is it even worth it? I don't know that you would save a penny. My lenders don't charge me anything for escrowing the money. You might have money in your possession sooner, when they do an escrow account review and they find out, oh, we charged you this much every month, but your taxes and insurance were only this much. So here's your little $230 refund or whatever it's going to be. But that's not saving money. That's just getting money back that they overcharged you. I have one paid off property. I do the taxes and insurance on auto payments, and it cost me the same as when I had a mortgage and they collected the money and made the auto payments. So it's up to you, whatever you're more comfortable with. It's a little frustrating when you buy a property and you get your rental, you get your mortgage, and you're all set up for auto payments, and then they sell your mortgage. So you have to switch it over. I've not had a mortgage sold a second time yet. That's a cool question I should ask the lumberjack landlord. It's because he's got money, many more properties than I do. It's like 112 units now. I wonder how many times mortgages get sold a second or third time, where I've only had them close, sold usually within 2 to 3 days. I've had one that was sold 3 months later, caused some actual problems, but I have not had any sold a second time. So, Jones, I'm anxious and impatient, but sticking to it. Patience is hard, especially when you're first starting and you don't know for sure that this is going to work. If someone like me or Matt, the lumberjack landlord, or Michael Zuber, or even Millennial Mike go back to the beginning, we'd be like, yep, I'm going to do these things in exactly this order. This is the timeline it's going to take. Got it. Because we've done this. You're just taking information from people who have done it kind of on faith. Kind of like when Matt, the lumberjack landlord, gets interviewed by Business Insider. To get interviewed by Business Insider, here's a behind the scenes thing. They vet you, prove income, prove cash flow, prove timeline, prove all of these things. So I get that what's coming out of Matt, the lumberjack's mouth, and he's been interviewed by a company like Business Insider who does that vetting. I can sit down and go, yep, absolutely. Everything he's saying is how it is. But as somebody who's taking in this information, that patience is really hard to hold on to because you don't have that concrete belief that it's going to happen. But it will. Camilla, when are you taking us to your rentals? Huh. Can you live stream from a phone? I haven't done that yet. If I can live stream from a phone, I can just do video walkthroughs. Happy to do that. I have several videos where I have drone images of the properties or images of me in front of the properties. When I talk about them, I have videos like first and second house hack. But I could probably, I could try to do a live where I'm walking around a property, just creeping out the tenants. We'll see. That's a good idea though, Amanda. Thank you. Chester, this question is for newer investors. Although you're planning to buy and hold forever, what criteria would make sense for an exit strategy for a property when looking to scale a rental portfolio? Michael Zuber and Matt, the lumberjack landlord, have done what is called recycling capital. So cash out refinance, a home equity line of credit, or selling a property to repurchase more. So they scaled numbers quicker. And they might have even scaled cash flow quicker. I want to do kind of a comparison. I don't know if they would even remember, because they've been investing 20 years. But at 10 years, did they have 6 figures of cash flow? And did they have that with only 16 units to manage? So I don't know which way is better, because it grows like a hockey stick. So if I'm at year 10, getting to year 20, if I continue to add, I don't know if recycling capital or recycling cash flow, which one would actually be faster. But my goal is not to have 112 units like Matt has now. I might go somewhere between 20 and 30, 10 mortgages in my name, and probably never buy a property again. We'll see. Currently, that's the plan, but we'll see what happens when I start hitting the end of depreciation cycles and have to start cutting checks for taxes. That might change me to always be buying. When to sell. So it depends on your strategy. Kris Krohn has he's a YouTube content creator. His strategy is to buy, fix it up, rent it out, keep it for about 7 years, sell, recycle the money as an ongoing strategy. Because at about 7 years, this is when the bigger CapEx things start to come up. So he gets out before those big expenses happen, takes his capital, 1031s, working great for him, scaling much larger. But I like the idea of, I mean, think of this. Anybody you know right now who purchased a property in 1990, they're happy with what they paid. They can't believe their rent they're getting on a paid off property. They can sell, but they can also cash out, refinance, HELOC. The money's theirs. It's just sitting there. But every one of us would go, I wish I could buy a property for that price. Brand new builds in the town I was at in Southern California in 1990 were selling for $40,000. 5-6 bedroom houses, brand new. And most investors regret selling a property. I mean, yeah, there's some, if the turnover was really high at a property and it was a headache, you're happy it's gone. But most investors say, I wish I hadn't sold those properties. Michael Zuber flipped a bunch of properties last year, so he had a big tax obligation this year. He even said in his live stream, I wish I'd kept some or most of those, because he didn't want to write the tax thing. So knowing your exit strategy is important, and understanding the tax implications of that is probably a big determining factor too. Chester, that's a great definition of DCA. Thank you. Jones, until I have the money, deal, and financing available, I'm just going to absorb information and ask CDO related questions. Perfectly. 600 plus home, median price when I'm ready. And they're going up. Let's see. Okay. Here we go. Where did I go? Chris Webb. Howdy. From Central Virginia, which always makes me wonder if I forgot about a state, because there's West Virginia and then Virginia. Thanks for hanging out with us, Chris. Appreciate it. Million. For Section 8 property, egress windows for basement bedroom can be one egress window that have step and normal window with 4.5 degrees above the floor. I don't know if that's a question. Yes, egress is the same Section 8 or not. You're going to be required to, in order to have a living area that's considered a bedroom, 2 forms of egress. And laws might change from place to place. In my area, the step does work to dictate the height of the window. It's based on the step. Yep. Chris, great video. Thank you. Appreciate that. Chester, for renting by the room where it's legal, would the area average rent divided by the number of rooms be a feasible operating strategy? Not my experience. No. Generally, you're going to gain a lot more by the room than the area average rent. That the reason you want to rent by the room is because you get multiples. Todd Baldwin here on YouTube. He's Michael Zuber's Sunday guest. He rents by the room in Seattle, very expensive market where it would not make sense to rent the property. He would lose money on the property. Is making tens of thousands in profit and cash flow every month by renting by the room. So you make a lot more by the room than you would based on the area average rent. So a 5-bedroom, I don't know the math, Todd would know it. 5-bedroom that you're saying is worth $2,500. It's probably $1,000 a room. So he's going to get $5,000 instead of $2,500. That was loose math. Watch his content. Yeah, he's got great information on renting by the room. Chester, or would you charge slightly higher for the room to cover the higher risk? Yeah, so it's actually not slightly more, it's way more. Anna K. Okay. Jones O, did you do the math right? 417 days, 10,000 hours. That doesn't seem right. So, yeah. Not sure. Johnny Cashflow Ramirez. I meet with a CPA for the first year as a landlord. I'm nervous, but ready to learn. Yep. I would probably Google some questions on YouTube and Google on, questions to ask a CPA for real estate, to have a fresh set of questions when you walk in. That I would prepare for that meeting by thinking, like any vendor, you're going to compare them against the fees and knowledge and experience of other vendors who provide the same service. Jones, yeah, it's 10. Sorry, people on the East Coast. I get if you start to fade, I understand. We're over the 3-minute mark, or 3 minutes. Yeah, we've been here 3 minutes, at least 3 minutes. That's factually correct. Lumberjack landlord, sheesh, 115 units. And you got 115, you closed on more. I missed that. You had one sold 4 times in 12 years, but that largely was from Great Recession. I'd always open the books for you, my dude. Yes, you can live stream from phone. Zoom's better to record than post. Awesome. Lumberjack, recycle capital and cash flow. One's good, two's better. Well, there you go. So you do both, right? That is true. If you're recycling capital, you are also recycling cash flow. Angel R, do you think Jeremy Powell has the cojones to raise interest rates? Why would he have? Okay. I don't know. So here's my answer to that question. If you live in an area and people think, if this politician gets in office, my plan is great. If this politician gets in office, I can't do my plan. I think that's a mistake. When it comes to politics, we should go, if this politician gets in office, here's my plan. If this politician gets in office, here's my plan. The plan matches the person in office. Same with interest rates. If rates go up, here's my plan. If rates go up a little, here's my plan. If rates stay where they are or go down, here's my plan. Have a plan for both outcomes. If rates go up a lot, seller financing starts to look a lot more attractive. So I would start spending more time finding that, because they don't always get the same interest rate. And you don't have to offer more than what you would offer to the bank. Subject to becomes more attractive because you're taking over a mortgage that already exists, so you're not going with the higher rates. Figure out what you would do depending on what's happened, and then sit back, because it would take an actual crystal ball to figure out what's going to happen with rates. So think, game theory it. What would you do in each scenario? And I don't know enough about, like, my goal was make work optional. Here's the simple strategies that do that. I don't follow interest rates. I don't follow politics. I don't follow those kind of things, because if this happens, this is my plan. If rates go up, I'm going to continue to save money, put more money down to finance less on deals to make them better. If rates go down, it's kind of like dollar cost averaging. I'm still going to be investing the same amount of money, but the amount of property I'm going to get is going to go up or down based on my purchasing power. Lumberjack, egress is 5.7 square foot in a single pane, 0.5 in May. Angel. Oh, so it's changing. Heard it here. Nice. Angel R. I'm glad I bought when I did. Got 3.1 and 5.15 locked for 30 years, thanks to you guys. So if rates go up and people do purchases, there could be a time in the future to refinance when rates come back down. And watch what is happening with rents. We're still seeing record wage inflation. Don't bank on rents going up more next year, like a higher increase than this year. But pay attention to where they are currently, because that's impacting what you can pay for properties. Million, have you come across a list of Section 8 inspection list? I'm on contract, but no egress window. There's probably one online, but each county is going to be a little different. I know that some areas require a source of heat. Some don't. Some require a source of, I can't imagine air conditioning be a requirement, but some can require a light, power. Egress can be a door and a window, or 2 doors. Some require closets, and the requirement for closet can change. Most of it's a closet with a door. And in my one Section 8, I had to add a door, so it's a walk-in closet. A walk-in closet had to have a door. So it just depends on the inspector you get. So I put in saloon doors on the closet. They were fine with it. Kind of county dependent, inspector dependent. Kind of a tip with your inspection when they come for the inspection is they might give you a list. These are the deficiencies you would need to correct for us to be able to provide service at this address. And it can be your exterior light doesn't work or something like that. Instead of scheduling a second inspection for them to come and tell you, hey, you fixed everything right, so now we can sign off on it, ask for their contact information to include an email. And so when you have that list of a few things they want you to fix, the weather stripping on a door, the whatever, ask them, the inspector that's there, if I take a video, can I send you the video so that you can approve that the repair's been done? That saves you rescheduling a second inspection and can cut a couple of weeks off of your timeline to get approved. Chester. A good video, although it's more focused on building a business, but there are useful parallels, is how to brute force your way to 1 million on ALUX to describe the effort rewards over time while waiting for the income snowball to kick in. I watch ALUX a lot. They've got some great videos. I really like, so I've almost wanted to do these videos, but I don't like how much ALUX gets attacked when they compare rich to poor. You know, things rich people teach their kids that poor don't. I mean, these are good concepts, things that you could take away going, oh, this is what a rich person would teach. This is what I want to focus on. But they get 150,000 dislikes back when we had a dislike count, which a channel that has millions of views, sure, that's fine. But when you don't even have 10,000 subscribers yet, that can kill your channel. So the one closest video I have is things the rich and poor do that are almost the same, because it was less. It's almost like people don't like having anything about poor people pointed out. If you make decisions that contribute to the fact that you lack resources, that should be called out. If where you're born, an actual physical deficiency, something causes you to be, I get you can be defensive. But if you say, I bought a bunch of stuff I couldn't afford and had to file bankruptcy, and if anybody else points out that that was a mistake, and that person gets attacked, I don't understand that mentality. But yes, ALX is good stuff. CJ, the man is still going. I think we're going to head out because it's 10 o'clock on the East Coast. I want to thank everybody who hung out with me tonight. Hopefully these questions helped you guys. The Three Amigos will be recording on Thursday. Matt the Lumberjack Landlord's live stream is on Sunday at 11:30 Eastern, so 8:30 on the West Coast. I'm going to give it just one more second, just in case anybody has any last-minute questions you really want to wrap up, but I understand we went for 3 hours and 21 minutes, so that was fair, and I think I still have some vodka left. Oh, thank you, Angel. De nada. All right, we're going to call it there. I want to thank everybody. You guys have a great evening. East Coast, yeah, you have to take. You guys have a good night. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.